And are we being?
All right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We'll get started on the Great Barrington Planning Board meeting for Thursday, February 9th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the planning board will be conducted in person and by a remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, and those who wish to do so may attend remotely by following the instructions on this agenda. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Should we keep track of who is participating online, and we look for hands to be raised. In addition, pursuant to MGL 7C30A section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of the meeting of the public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of the agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. And there's one other item that is not on our agenda, but I'll paraphrase. Basically, before we take an action, we will offer members of the public an opportunity to comment in the amount of time equal to the proponent of an application. Okay. So with that, we will proceed with roll call attendance. Malcolm Field.
Same here.
Jonathan Henkin.
Present.
Jeremy Eager. Randy Nelson here. Jackie King.
Here.
Pedro Pachano.
Present.
Excellent. So we are all here except for Pedro. I have not heard of anyone.
Jeremy, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. The other.
They all look alike.
Ah, you just did roll call.
Sometimes known as Diego. Other times known as Pablo.
You haven't been a Pablo for a long time. Okay, and the meeting is being recorded, and so do we have any Form As? I'm not recall seeing any, so we have no Form As, so we'll move on to the minutes of January 26th. Did you amend them? Were there any minutes? Okay, so as amended, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Again, by Malcolm. Anybody else got any comments?
I would like to thank Kim.
Amazing.
Kim is incredible.
Got it,
Let
John.
the record show that Kim is incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. All right, so we'll vote. Malcolm,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Randy. Aye. Pablo, Pedro.
Aye.
Excellent. All right, item number 3, special permit planned unit residential development review of the proposed Houstonic home ownership housing on North Plain Road. Review of the special permit and PERD plans for the town of Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust, Central Berkshire Habitat for Humanity project at 0 North Plain Road, map 26, lot 53A, in accordance with section 8.5 of the zoning bylaws. Mr. Tucker, are you here?
I am here.
Okay,
Before you get started, can we just clarify what we're here tonight to do on this?
well, that's an excellent question. So I think what we're here to do is we had received a site plan, or yeah, I guess it's a site plan, several months ago. And I think you came in just for information purposes at that point in time. And so this
It's a required preliminary review by the planning. board.
preliminary review. Okay, thank you. And we conducted that review. And now there is a revised set.
Right.
So we want to review the set of plan.
Right, so is this another preliminary plan?
Is it the preliminary plan or is this the definitive?
Is that the question? Okay.
It's not enough
Chris,
information.
can you advise, are we moving into the new section? I mean, I guess I wouldn't think someone could be stuck in preliminary forever. That sounds like purgatory.
No, I think that this board has seen the preliminary plan required under the PERD. This plan shows revisions based on those comments in August or September. I think. So the Housing Trust has filed a special permit application for a PERD. And so this is a recommendation on the special permit application to the select board.
What about the subdivision?
You will hear the subdivision definitive plan as well. This is not that.
Right. So,
I've never been through a permit, but I think special permit first and then the definitive plan with subdivision.
It says the special permit application shall be accompanied by a definitive development plan.
so that's opposite what you said.
Special permit required under 852. Special permit required. The select board may be the special permit granting authority for the FERD and may grant the special permit in accordance with section 10.4.
8.5.9 deals with the
The procedure
definitive plan.
procedures 8.5.8
That's the
before
preliminary plan.
applying. That's the preliminary. Sufficient detail, 6 copies.
This is not a definitive plan public hearing tonight.
Right,
It's not been advertised
Right.
tonight as a public hearing.
right.
And
That's the question.
the way I understand it, our public hearing is only to review the roadway of the
Right.
definitive plan.
I believe that's correct. Similar to the subdivision, yes.
But if this is going before the select board, this for a special permit application, it should have a definitive plan submitted with it.
That's what it says.
And
Okay.
so
Well,
is the, okay. So you're seeing that as a deficiency then?
It doesn't say exactly what a definitive plan has to have, except for 2 locus maps.
Well,
our
subdivision says what it has to have.
so a definitive plan will have to be filed with meeting all the requirements of the subdivision. But tonight, I'm sure we can move forward with the special permit recommendation.
Are you sure?
Well, let's hear Mr. Parker.
Let's see what Fred has to say.
I'm here only as an introduction. Brent White, who's on Zoom, will be presenting most of the stuff. Good evening. My name is Fred Clark. I'm the chair of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust. This project is intended to help alleviate the critical shortage of affordable housing created by homeownership and by creating homeownership opportunities. All of these houses will be deed restricted at no more than 100% area median income or AMI, with most at or below 80% of AMI. So these are home ownership as opposed to rental affordable housing. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, acting with the town, proposed the purchase of this parcel, and it was approved by town meeting in 2020. The trust contracted for a feasibility study, which was favorably received, and subsequently issued an RFP in October of 2020. Habitat for Humanity's proposal was accepted in January 2021, with a purchase and sale agreement following shortly. The town, in parallel, applied for a MassWorks grant, which was subsequently awarded in 2 phases: $69,000 for engineering, design, and planning and surveying, and subsequently $3.2 million for construction of infrastructure. Ownership remains with the town due to the grant requirements of MassWorks, but it will be transferred to Habitat. During the CPA process and approval at town meeting, the community weighed in with many comments. Habitat has had 2 in-person community engagement meetings in Housatonic and has plans for additional meetings prior to construction. Habitat has extensive experience with social media communications and has developed a robust contact list. The trust is thrilled that Habitat has chosen this project to bring their affordable housing expertise to Great Barrington in their first venture in South County. And I'm going to turn it over. I'm also on online is Aaron O'Brien, who's the construction representative for Habitat, the project manager for this area, and Brent White. Also, Elizabeth Goodman is the attorney for here. So that's my part
Thank you.
for an introduction.
All right, Brian, did you want to go ahead and give us a review of the plans?
I'd be happy to, but I believe Attorney Goodman has something to say before I begin my remarks, so I'd like to yield the floor to her first, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Brent. Hi, this is Elizabeth Goodman. I represent Central Berkshire Habitat. And I know you asked about a subdivision plan. I think it's an open question right now, whether there is going to actually be a subdivision or maybe a condominium structure. So what I thought your bylaw required was a development plan and subdivision road, a roadway that meets your subdivision standards and your utilities shown on the plan and all of those requirements. But I don't see anywhere in your bylaw that says a PERD must be a subdivision. So my understanding was we were going to get a special permit and you were going to make a recommendation to the select board about the special permit. But, if I'm wrong and we have to also file a plan of subdivision, then we should know that. And Brent, I don't know if you had any concept or you want to go on and discuss the process a little more.
It was my understanding we were filing for the special permit and that the setting of the conditions and the covenants that would ultimately be developed as a part of the work with Central Berkshire Habitat for Humanity, the Affordable Housing Trust, that those documents would be not necessarily prepared by the time the special permit is granted, but that would be conditioned so that all the requirements that a typical subdivision approval would require in terms of bonds, operation and maintenance plans, things of that effect would be conditioned as a part of the granting of the special permit granted by the select board. That was my understanding.
This is Chris speaking. A definitive land development plan is required by 8.5.9 of the town code. That is not defined definitive land development plan that I see anywhere. There's a definitive subdivision plan and subdivision regulations, which is an order of magnitude different than what we're talking about here. So I think I would second what Attorney Goodman said, that if it's not a subdivision, it wouldn't require a subdivision application per se. The planning board does need to review the road in accordance with the subdivision regulations, but it's not a definitive plan for the subdivision regulations. I think tonight the material in front of you meets almost all of the criteria of a definitive land development plan that's laid out in section 8.5.9 of the zoning code, with the possible exception. Well, we actually do have, I think, Brent, elevations of the buildings and floor plans of the buildings. So I think we probably have most, if not all, the information that's required to at least begin the review of the definitive land development plan.
Okay, thank you. Brent, you want to go ahead?
I'd be happy to. First off, thank you everybody for your time this evening. My name is Brent White from White Engineering in Pittsfield on behalf of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust, working with Central Berkshire Habitat for Humanity. As Mr. Clark identified here, we've spent a great deal of time since our appearance before you in September, factoring in your feedback with respect to density development of the property here. We understood very clearly that additional efforts to provide more opportunities for home ownership on this property were a priority of the planning board, and through Carolyn Valley, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, as well as Aaron O'Brien and their staff, went through great lengths to seek input on the style of homes to be constructed, the number of bedrooms to be provided, and working on amendments to the layout from what you saw in September to what we have before you this evening. So with your permission, I'll share my screen, and I've got an overall plan that shows the 7.25 acre site here that is most relevant to our discussion here. Is that visible for everybody?
It's just loading.
Okay.
Yes, we can see the plan.
Okay. Let me try here.
It's a plan.
Okay, so for your reference, on the right-hand side, the east side of the street here is Route 41 North Plain Road. What we've identified here, we've kept the same general layout of the entrance to the property and the road network from what you saw in September with respect to a more of a elliptical shape of a road centered on the mass of the property here. You may recall one of the changes that we're making from the site, the current access right now, if you see where my cursor is, I'll highlight this in yellow. The current access to the site and the likely beginning construction access for the site here is more of a, I'll call it a logging road, is probably a generous characterization of that, but that is the most gentle access into the property right now, most clear access. What we found during our initial due diligence as a part of the feasibility study was really that location, unfortunately, was not providing of a safe sight distance for any vehicles that would be looking to the north here. The topography of North Plain Road goes up in elevation as you head from the southern portion of our frontage to the north here. So ultimately, as a part of our evaluation of the property, we found a curb cut location that provides us ample sight distance high enough on the hill to be able to see further north along North Plain Road, as well as having plenty of sight distance to the south. As we come into the property here, we do have the first house sites here on the south side of the driveway with some community parking spaces just on the north side of that. And then we've tried to provide each house site with its own individual driveway and parking areas. And as you can see from the footprints throughout the site here, we tried to stagger the size and style of the homes. We did submit a number of elevations of the different types of floor plans and elevations that would be considered to be built over a 4-phase process throughout the site here. As stated in the introduction, we have received a MassWorks grant to construct the infrastructure for this property, and that includes a number of different items. The first would be connection of this property to the sanitary sewer. We will have a gravity collection system within the property, and then in this location here will be a pump station. Since we submitted the application, we have received some preliminary feedback from the current DPW superintendent. Initially, we had proposed to use a low pressure grinder sewage pump station to connect to the municipal sewer further down Main Street. Based on the superintendent's preferences, we understand he would like us to move forward with a high pressure sewage pump station that would be similar equipment that the DPW already has spread throughout the town of Great Barrington that would provide ultimately as a part of the MassWorks process here. The Department of Public Works will take over the infrastructure here. So we'll certainly work to accommodate the details of the pump station to reflect equipment that the town of Great Barrington already operates throughout the rest of the community. The second element of the infrastructure that will be installed is the connection to the Housatonic Waterworks Company. Again, since we've submitted the application, we've heard from James Mercer from the water company that we cited a study that was commissioned by the town of Great Barrington in 2021, performed by AECOM, a large civil engineering firm, and they identified a suitable supply of water and pressure for water to service the 30 homes in this portion of the water system. And we've also received separate email correspondence from the district directly confirming that capacity exists. Along with that, obviously, we're going to construct a road throughout the property here that will be paved. That has been reviewed by the fire chief, and I know Mr. Rembold had the direct discussion with the fire chief, but I understand he was satisfied with the layout of the road and hydrant placement throughout the property here. So we were pleased to hear that feedback. And the last element with respect to infrastructure here is associated with the stormwater management. One of the benefits that I identified for this property during our preliminary discussion is this is a very sand and gravel type well draining soils. And if you were to look at the topography, I know it's hard to see with the green coloring here, but we essentially have a low spot in the center of the property. And then as we come from south to north to the middle of the property, we're draining towards the center, and vice versa. From the north side coming south, we are draining that direction. So throughout the center of this road network here, we have a series of deep sump catch basins along the road, a storm scepter unit that provides the required total suspended solids removal, basically to make the water cleaner. And then ultimately we recharge that water back into the ground below grade, providing a flat grass area for use for recreation and open space centered throughout the neighborhood, available for anyone's use here. So we felt that was the most appropriate technique for management of stormwater here, while also trying to provide as much open, uninterrupted open space for use on the property. I guess I should say associated with the road also is we've proposed a lighting plan as a part of our development plan, and I'm going to switch which plan I'm sharing here for that. We've submitted a cut sheet that shows a 15-foot tall solar powered shielded LED light fixture, and the footprints that we see laid out throughout the site here are colored in yellow. That is the limit of the 1/2 foot candle light footprint that would come from that 15-foot tall structure throughout the property. So we've really tried to minimize the amount of pole mounted exterior lighting that would be provided along the roadway here, safe enough for public access and use along the roadway here, but not in such a fashion that would provide a nuisance here. And it was, again, our priority of choosing the 15-foot height structure there to not be similar to the Cobra lights that you might see along North Plain Road that are in excess of 20 feet tall and would potentially more invasive to our surrounding properties. With regards to traffic, we have reviewed traffic data from Mass DOT, and obviously with 30 homes here, we are going to have an increase in traffic. However, based upon our reconstruction of the entrance to the property here, we have a much safer driveway for vehicles to enter and exit the property and onto North Plain Road. One of the other improvements that's actually been made along North Plain Road since we had our feasibility study conducted in 2020 is the town has actually installed the solar powered speed signs in both the northern and southern direction along North Plain Road. They work personally. So I think that's certainly an improvement to the conditions along North Plain Road from when we did our very first analysis of the property for the Affordable Housing Trust. One of the other benefits of this property here with respect to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the town of Great Barrington, there are a number of resource areas that are subject to environmental review. In this case here, this property does not contain any of those regulated areas. We are outside the 200-foot riverfront area from the Williams River. We are not within the floodplain of the river. We are not mapped in any priority or estimated habitats based on the natural heritage mapping. We do not have any bordering vegetative wetlands on the property. We do not lie within the Scenic Mountains Act or any aspect of the Water Quality Protection Overlay District as it's defined in the town. Obviously, at the point here, many of our surrounding properties are served by an on-site sewage disposal system here. However, again, all of the homes themselves will be served by a municipal sewer connection, avoiding the need for a septic system. And again, I'd just like to emphasize here, we appreciate the feedback that the board had given us back in September to allow us to go back working with our partners on the project to come up with a greater density of development. We were able to site the houses to maximize solar orientation on the roofs. I know that's always been a priority for Habitat, and was glad to see through the revisiting of the different footprints of houses here and the rather irregular shape of the property here. You know, if we had a nice square lot or may have made certain elements of this possibly easier to lay out here, but we feel we've done the best to compromise of maximizing the density on the property here while still providing the required buffer to our properties to the north, west, and to the south. So this point, that's really the summary of my comments here, and I don't know if Attorney Goodman has anything further she'd like to share, or if the board just has any questions you'd like to ask us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Goodman, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want to say thank you, Brent. That was a great presentation and a good job. And I am here mostly to answer your questions if you have any additional questions.
Okay,
Just the last thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The last thing I was just going to mention is in working with Mr. Rembold here, I believe we are scheduled at this point, tentatively at least, to appear before the select board on March 6th here. And our goal is to obviously be able to appear before the select board at that point. And then upon eventual receipt of the special permit here, we would certainly be in a position to finalize construction documents that would account for any special conditions set as a part of the special permit, and then fulfill the next step of this, working with Habitat for Humanity and the town of Great Barrington to put the infrastructure work out to bid. I know that is very much a priority for the trust and the town, and I just wanted to state that for the record during your hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have one hand raised. Do you want to recognize that now?
Is it someone with the applicant?
I don't know who it is.
I'd rather, I don't know who PCA is.
Okay.
I think we'll just hold and we'll go back to them. Malcolm,
Yeah, let's do, yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions to get up. In your narrative, you talked about the benefits of the low pressure sewer pump to the other potential users of the sewer line. Is that now going to be a problem for others? I mean, I'm not saying yes to the decision, I'm just curious.
No, sir, it was just the low pressure system. We've designed a number of these systems for those who are familiar with, say, the Beechwood community on the south end of Stockbridge Bowl. Our office has personally designed and oversaw the construction of the low pressure system that was put in along the lakefront neighborhood of Bramble Lane in the town of Lee and Lenox. So we've had great experience with the low pressure. It is an easier connection to make, in my opinion. However, going with the high pressure design would not prohibit the ability for neighbors to connect either to the north or south. It would just be, frankly, some additional design work working with the DPW, understanding based on where those connections would be made, how we size this force main to allow a future connection from the north or south. It's still very possible. It's just a different design and different parameters that we may have in terms of the sizing of our pump station as a high pressure discharge as compared to the low pressure, which will be constantly full of water. The high pressure will charge the line, push sewage, and then at the time that it shuts off, there will be a certain level of drain back. So it's a different mousetrap. It's a different way of conveying sewage from our property to connect to the town's gravity collection system. The town has verified there's more than ample capacity to do so here, and ultimately, the town of Great Barrington would likely be the proponent for any expansion of the sewer that were put in here. And obviously, having a relatively newer superintendent, we're happy to work with him to. Again, as a part of the special permit and moving forward from the special permit, have the final construction documents and what's put out to bid reflect what he would like to see as the responsible party on behalf of the town that would allow that to occur going forward. But we'll still be able to have stubs in our force main to allow for future connections, whether it's from the north or the south.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other thing is on the lighting page, you have a photometric detail for the light. Is that the same scale as the overall map? The photometric detail on the side, is that the same scale?
No.
No.
It's not to scale.
It is not so. No, sir. The footprint that you see shown on the site plan view colored in yellow on my screen that should be visible for you now, that does show a true to scale light footprint.
Okay. Okay, we don't have that, right?
Yeah,
Or we do, but not.
You do.
color.
Not in color, sorry.
It's like the bubbles around the right.
Yeah,
Yes,
got it, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else, Jonathan?
Not right
Okay,
now.
we can come back. We'll just give everybody a shot though. Jonathan?
First of all, I'm pleased that you went from 19 to 30. That's a start. What I don't think you've accomplished is a PERD. Because this is basically a subdivision. And the thing about a PERD is it allows you to cluster the units and provide more open space. And what I'm seeing is basically probably 6.5 acres of lawn. And the rest is just whatever happens on the perimeter. So I don't think it qualifies as a PERD. Show me one cluster on here of housing. I don't see one cluster. Which is the purpose, one of the stated purposes of a PERD.
Well, can I ask you just, in reading the language here, it says that the purpose of the planned unit residential development in 8.5.1 allow for greater variety, creativity, flexibility, and development, provide harmonious and diverse housing choices with varied setback lines, dwelling types, and cluster type site planning with provisions to control. I read that as allow, not require.
How is this different than a subdivision? It looks very much like a subdivision.
Well, it's greater variety and density. It's got some 2-family units and it's.
No, we allow
Single
we
family?
allow 2-family by right. We allow single family by right.
I don't know if they could get this many units,
Yeah, they can get more in a conventional subdivision.
but realistically, given the infrastructure requirements, I mean,
They could.
I don't know, Jonathan.
But that's not what they're proposing.
Yeah,
There was already, when the trust bought this, there was a preliminary subdivision plan with big lots, and it was 12 lots, which would allow by right 36 units. So, you know, they've reduced the number of units, which is fine, but it's very much a subdivision. And, you know, I think what you want to create here is a community. And I don't think this does that. And I think, you know, as I mentioned last time, Brent, that, you know, having the houses away from your open space in the center. Basically, if you want to see what that looks like, go to Blue Hill Commons. That was designed by Walter Kodnowski, famed landscape architect.
No wall, work with the wall.
And you have basically the eponymous commons there that is just grass. No one has ever used it in the 20 years it's been in existence. It's just grass. And so, you know, I think what you want to do is you want to build a community. And there are a lot of ways to build a community. One of the ways would be actually move the houses up to approach that center area, so it's everyone's backyard. Another way would be to group the parking so that when you get out of your car, you know, you have a good chance of running into a neighbor and saying hi on your way to your house, as opposed to driving up to your house and never seeing your neighbor. You know, there's just so many things about this plan that drive me crazy. It's basically, it's Levittown. It's from the 50s.
You want to take any responses to that, Brandon?
Brent or Aaron?
I'll let Attorney Goodman take that first, please.
Thank you. Thank you. To me, one of the major differences with a PURD in your bylaw is that the land has to be preserved. A subdivision doesn't require any common land. It's just a division of land and each person owns their own. And the whole point of a PURD is that the land is preserved and there's conservation of open spaces. And your bylaw doesn't say open spaces that are, you know, used for a soccer court or, you know, have some other use. It's literally just the land shall be kept in an open or natural state and not built upon for residential use. So it allows some land to be saved. And you say there's how many acres, Brent, in the green common area in the middle?
I don't have an exact size of that. I can give it.
It's several.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'll say it's a 7.258 total acre site there, so I can figure out what that rough interior area is.
It preserves a lot of acreage, which if it were a subdivision and each lot owned by the individual people wouldn't exist at all. And I think the concern, I see what you're saying, that maybe we could make the driveway around the back of all the houses and then all the houses would just have a backyard on the common area shared. But I think the problem there is drainage on the site. I think that Brent has designed the site in the only way you can fit these houses on and not have groundwater flooding problems. So I guess, Brent, I'd like you to talk about other possibilities. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, you know, one of our design priorities is to try and work with the land as much as possible. This concept has allowed us to take advantage of the natural topography. Yes, we are changing grades to make the road work at a suitable grade for certainly fire access and for people's use here, but we're trying to work with that. The fact we don't have a daylight drainage point here. So the center of our property, all of our water is going to collect there. So the idea of putting houses in the center of the property, I think would make substantially more site work in order to raise the grade there high enough and then have the water drain to the north and south. The other issue that we have with that concept is that would substantially increase the length of the road and also put that road much closer to our neighbors to the west, north, and south. So I think in terms of our site layout here and trying to compromise as many of those things as possible here, in our opinion, this is the best layout for doing so.
This is Chris. I'll add finally that the town's partner here, our selected developer, as Fred Clark mentioned, is Southern Berkshire Habitat for Humanity. The house types and the location and the individual driveways per house are driven somewhat by Habitat's considerable experience in developing and selling homes. And they believe that this is a very marketable and approachable product for first-time homebuyers in southern Berkshire County. So that's another reason why you see the individual driveways for each house located the way they are off that central.
Thank you, Chris. That's a great point. And when we did the diligence work for the Gordon Deming development that Central Berkshire Habitat did in Pittsfield for six units here sitting in the public input sessions, and I believe Aaron O'Brien, who's on the call, might be able to elaborate on what was said during the town meetings here. But many of the homeowners that Habitat have generally been living in a duplex style or a large apartment building where they've never had their own space, and the idea of too much community parking there almost makes them still feel like they really haven't made that progression into true home ownership. I think Aaron can probably speak more eloquently than I can on those details here, but that was very much understood to be a priority concern for the ability for Habitat to sell these houses to people who want to buy them, and for Habitat to build these in a way that they can afford to sell them at that price.
Yes. So, I believe, as Carolyn has said before, the objective is to be able to sell these homes, and they're looking to move up from an apartment situation and a shared wall situation. And we're having trouble selling the duplexes with shared walls in Pittsfield right now. So, the meetings that we've had have expressed the desire for parking right next to a driveway, right next to their home for bringing groceries and that type of thing, and having a little, yard, a little green space, something of their own.
So maybe it would be helpful, Brent, if you could kind of maybe just pick one house site and kind of zoom in on a little tighter and explain how a homeowner would engage with their house, where their driveway is in relationship to their front door, where their front door is in relationship to the street. What space would be sort of designated as your yard? Is it the space between the front of the house and the frontage road, or is it a space in the rear of the house? And maybe, Aaron, you've got some insights as to how this has worked in other communities.
Is that blown up view more visible for you all?
It's much bigger. That's helpful because it's still tiny, but better.
Oh.
Thank you. So just in general, what's the average area around a house?
In terms of square footage, or just, so in this case, let's use house number 11 here. So obviously we have a lawn area that will be placed in front of that. We have a porch shown on the front of this house here. They'll obviously also have their own green space behind that.
And is 11 the footprint of 11 the actual footprint of one of the options that you provided to us in our packet? Just,
yes, it is.
Again, for help in sort of correlating. So could you tell us which one in our packet it correlates to?
Cute names.
They do have cute names. Yeah.
That will take me a second, to be honest, for you, Brent.
Sorry.
There's a little.
Nope.
Helpful to. I can tell which one's the duplex. How about that? I know it's not a duplex.
All right, let's.
There's a little.
There's one called La Petite.
I think it's the Penyon.
It's either Penyon or it's the Yorktown.
I think it's the Penyon.
We just open up the file that's got the different.
I don't remember the Penyon.
I thought that was, I don't remember that.
This is Chris again. The exact dimensions of each owned parcel, versus the common land that would be held by the association or by the trust is not determined yet. That'll be, coordination with Habitat and Attorney Goodman will figure out exactly what the ownership footprint is.
Yeah.
So the exact lot lines, condo lines aren't drawn yet.
Sure, of course. And I guess to that end, does an individual who might be interested in buying in this community get a choice? Or is it like unit 11 is the Patricia? And if you want a Patricia, you have to be at unit 11, or could it be that if people only want the Patricia and the petite, that's all we end up with? Or,
I think there, through the habitat process, again, Aaron, I'm speaking as both a former board member here as well as a consultant to Habitat, but through the family selection process and going through the homeowner education, Habitat really has the opportunity to learn more about each individual family and what their needs are. Sometimes we'll have possibly a single parent with multiple children. We may have 3 generations of a home where we need a first floor bathroom and, perhaps the grandparent, the parent, and the grandkids all live in the house. So by having a variety of the number of bedrooms, style of homes, really is intended to give as much flexibility as we can here. Unfortunately, for the Gordon and Deming project that Aaron just made reference to in Pittsfield, it's 6 of the same units, and they're great units, and they did a heck of a job building them. But in terms of finding the right homeowners, that has proven to be more of a challenge. Homeowners who meet I think it's a combination of the family needs, the income requirements, the ability to process and complete their 400 hours of service. There's a number of things that homeowners need to be able to, boxes they need to check before they're really even in a position to have a discussion to say, this is the house model that we would like. These are our preferences. These are, in terms of order of merit or how Habitat prioritizes who gets what there's a number of factors that will go into that. So I don't think it's fair to say that someone's not going to simply approach Habitat and the Affordable Housing Trust and just say, I want to buy that house. It's much more involved over many months of vetting and financial qualification, financial education, sweat equity that would all go in, as well as family demographics to see what they would even qualify for. And I believe I mentioned it in my initial comments is this will actually be built out over multiple phases. So to a certain degree, I think the priority will be building the houses that are in keeping for the homeowners that we actually have eligible, who will be the first ones able to purchase this.
Exactly. And for instance, we have some interest right now from a woman who has a handicapped child and will need wheelchair access. And so we'll need to develop a home that will be appropriate for her if she is part of this this project in the end.
so Aaron, just more fundamentally then, I guess my question is, we've been provided a layout plan for site development, and it shows duplexes in some locations and single family homes of varying size in other locations. Is it fair to say that this plan will be followed? If duplexes are built, they're only going to be built in these 6 locations that are shown on the plan now, and single family homes will only be built in the single family home footprints that are shown on the plan now. And then the part B is, do those footprints vary? So like, will unit 11 be, let's call it the Patricia, and unit 12 will be the petite? Or should we expect that it's kind of a mix and match at each location depending on what your client is looking for?
Yes, it would be a mix. Although I believe the duplexes, we had in the back, Brent, I believe there was a reason why we put those in the back, correct?
Well, generally that's again, as I mentioned, it's kind of an irregular shape. So that was tighter areas, less of a footprint. That was an easier location to site those in a way. I think what our intention with this was to understand that we've got a number of different homes that will be suitable for the buyers that are looking to purchase in this neighborhood. We can have a variety of those laid out throughout the site here. I think, frankly, I don't see much in the way of substitution of the larger single family home footprints in that southwest corner there. I think those that, as well as the southeasternmost corner there, those I don't think there's going to be much in the way of flexibility. I believe those would likely need to remain as duplexes there. And that, to that point, as a part of special conditions of our special permit, I would envision an opportunity where if we needed to somehow substantially derivate from what is shown here in terms of duplexes versus single families, Attorney McGoodman would certainly suggest what that condition may be to the select board here. But I think what we've wanted to show is we can have a variety of homes that we know we can sell, developed, laid out throughout the 7.25 acre property with the road that we've laid out, in keeping with homes that we know we can sell.
Randy, just for the record, Carolyn Valley, who's the director of Central Berkshire, is now on the line with us.
I'm sure. Carolyn, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry for being late. I just landed from DC, where the topic in DC was housing, and how it is at a crisis level, and how our representatives from Massachusetts are really behind Habitat being able to build more homes. So I'm sorry for being late for that, but I felt it was important to really be down there doing what we were doing. A couple of things that I did hear that I wanted to address. The first one is we have to also keep in mind that there is a lottery that will be associated with this project that goes through DHCD. So that's another layer that we will have to be doing. And we are very hopeful that we get started with starting to get people to apply. We already have people that are joining our financial education classes, because that's the first step with working with Habitat at any capacity. So we will really have an opportunity to get to know what their needs are very clearly. And we didn't, when we were saying multiple phases, we really wanted to have a variety of houses in each phase. And even though I'm going to say the Patricia might be duplicated, they probably will not always look cookie cutter, because we will alter that by having different color exteriors or maybe some different trims. So the idea is that, and you see this in a lot of neighborhoods where it might be the same house, but it's just put in a different way. So we will do that to make it seem like it's a neighborhood, not a project per se. So I think that that's important to know. And then I understand Jonathan's thought process on building community. Building community is one of the things Habitat probably does better than any other housing developer, because of the fact that the neighbors will be building together. They're doing their sweat equity together. They're getting to know each other throughout the whole time. So you figure that sometimes people take 6, 8 a year to build up their sweat equity because they're working full time. So that building of community will happen. We also have had a number of community conversations with potential buyers and asked them questions like, how do you want to see common use? Like, how much do you want to talk to your neighbor? So the people that have really gotten involved with this have said, yeah, I want to be able to say hi to my neighbor. I want to be able to have a barbecue in that green area. I want to have the gazebo in the green area. We want to have a space that we can do common gardens, but we don't want to be required. Like one guy said, I get home from work, I'm tired. I don't want to necessarily have to talk to my neighbor, but in the morning on my way out, that might be okay. So it's more of a organic community building. But when you build with Habitat, you're building a community all along the way. And we're building it through the condo association. They all have voice in all of that. So I think that the design of the houses, we're doing our best, but I think the design of the community is really going to be governed by the community and how they want to interact with each other.
Thank you. That's helpful. Jonathan, did you have more?
Well, you can come back to me.
Okay, Jeremy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I like that answer. I mean, I live in Blue Hill Commons and I can definitely attest to that the common spaces aren't used. And I think, it was never built out like what you're talking about, the community deciding how they want to build out those spaces for what they're going to be used for. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. I don't think we ever had that kind of opportunity or dialogue in the homeowners association. I mean, there's 2 homeowners associations, and so I'm not on the lower one, with that big roundabout, which is a smaller one than this. It does get used by dogs, though. I have to say. It gets peed on a lot.
For pooping.
So that part, I had heard that part, and I had attended one of the community forums, and yeah, I kind of got that from that. And so, I mean, I think it's great. I know what Jonathan's talking about. Like, I mean, I understand the idea of having all the houses backed up to the common space as so it's like your backyard. And I think that would definitely appeal to a certain type of person, but I know from like the mix that in the development that I live in, there's definitely people that wouldn't be so interested in that. And, but yeah, and I really do understand the road on the outside, how that could be a problem. This still really excites me. I understand Jonathan's concerns. But I am really happy with Habitat's involvement in this, and I'm so happy that there's a home ownership affordable opportunity for Great Barrington. So I did have some things. I did have a question about lighting, and this is just from living in one of these places where the lights are on full capacity all night long. Will these dim during certain hours, or are they just going to stay on? Are they just going to stay on at their regular capacity from dusk to dawn? Oh, Brett, you're muted. Brett, yeah.
Usually better about that. Let me see if I can't pull up the lighting cut sheet here. I believe it has the ability to, let's see. Yep, it does have the ability to be dimmed here. I'm not sure if this has the ability for motion sensing. You know, the fact that this is going to be ultimately a town accepted road here, I don't know. Frankly, I would actually defer to the fire chief and police chief in terms of if they want those lights to have the ability to turn off, or if they want those to remain on here. But our goal with selecting it's solar powered, 15-foot tall, downward casting LED light here. Our hope would be that you know, based on the light footprints here, it has enough to illuminate the roadway itself for safe passage at the nighttime, but it's not creating light trespass onto our abutting properties. And frankly, it's not shining a spotlight on our homes themselves. So, you know, people will have their own floodlights or light fixtures on the front of their house to get from their driveway into the front door or on their front porch if that house has a porch here. But the goal is to, with lower level down facing lighting here, safely illuminate the neighborhood, but not do so in a way where it would look more like a commercial retailer's parking lot per se. I think that's probably, and I think there's probably some homeowners who would want to make sure that those lights are on all the time. It's just a pure public safety concern as well.
I would just say, please no floodlights.
So Chris, in addition to the road and the sewer and stuff, will the town be the ones maintaining the lights and?
I don't know yet. Streetlights throughout town are not owned by the town. They're owned by National Grid and maintained by National Grid. These ones probably will be part of the local infrastructure owned either by the town or the condominium association. National Grid itself offers you very few lighting options.
Yeah.
Certainly this nice lighting option is not offered. So I think this would be more owned and maintained on the local.
That actually brings up a great point too, just with regards to just the overall model of this and things that we're trying to factor in is we also want to have a neighborhood, you know, there's a certain element of this that the town will I believe I understand they will maintain the sewer system and plow the roads for us. The association will need to maintain the driveways. We'll need to mow our own lawn, maintain our landscaping here. So we're also trying to come up with a site here where we're not going to have exorbitant HOA fees on top of the mortgage that the homeowners will have here. And thinking back 13, 14 years ago in the initial planning for that Gordon Deming project, I mean, we were having discussions looking at people's budget, talking about could they afford $30 more a month, just based on all the other expenses that they'll have. If we end up having to own the lights or maintaining the lights, well, at least they're solar powered, so that's less electricity, less common HOE fees that we'll have to pay on an ongoing basis.
I think.
You know, they're all small things in an individual section here, but when you look at the snow plowing, the lawn mowing, the landscaping, the lights, in terms of addressing people's concerns about how this gets built out and how is this maintained down the road, the more things that we can do up front that will make it easier and more sustainable for them to maintain, we'll be in a much better position to have everybody hopefully happy. No guarantees.
And we'll have these discussions with Houstonic Water, also in terms of the water main, the hydrants, who owns them, does the association rent them? Or does the association own that utility into the site? There are different ways to do it for different reasons. Not all of those decisions are made yet.
I have a question. Go. I think, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
I was just wondering about landscaping and what the role of Habitat is vis-a-vis landscaping and what the new homeowners are responsible for, and then there's always the maintenance issue. I mean, you touched upon it, but I was just wondering what the plans are at start.
So we have a buffer planting surrounding the property here, and that to what I was just describing here is ultimately you could have, you know, a very, very elaborate landscape design come in, and we could give you beautiful renderings here, but it would be exorbitantly expensive to build and as well as to maintain, to have it work properly. So we want to have a development. We want to have a scheme where it is not so burdensome on a monthly or pardon me, on an annual basis for spring proper maintenance, fall cleanup of that vegetation here. You know, most conditions with regards to screening and plantings talk about, you know, percent survivability over a certain period of time here. So we don't want to have something that is so elaborate that we've come up with a scheme where they can't afford to pay someone to maintain it, and then it becomes overrun and more potential blight than benefit to the homeowners as well as to the neighbors. We've tried to provide as much natural screen as we can from our surrounding neighbors here. Obviously, we have grading work that we need to do to accommodate the house sites, to drain to the roadway here. We you know, in a perfect world would have even a larger buffer from our neighbors, but by virtue of constructing a road that is suitable. Yes,
I'm
Brandon.
sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think that was Jackie's question. Her question, I think, is more not, I don't think we've got a concern necessarily about buffer landscaping.
Okay.
It's more, you had said the association needs to maintain landscaping. So what landscaping are you talking about? Are homeowners responsible for plantings around their house? At what point beyond the house is it the association taking care of it versus a homeowner taking care of it?
I'm gonna let Carolyn take that. I think she can give you a better answer than I could on that.
Right, and so it's a both. So right around their house, they'll be responsible for the mowing, their own plantings. What we've heard over and over again, and we've seen over the 30 years that we've been doing Habitat, is people like to be responsible for their own plantings, you know. But what we normally do is we run some classes about how do you do that? How do you choose the right houses? And we've been really lucky that we've had different garden clubs that are like master gardeners will come in and teach the homeowners not only like how do you care for them, but how do you not pick the ones that are going to require so much time or aren't going to make it or all of those things. So, I mean, that's one of the beautiful things of Habitat as well, is people like to give their volunteering of their gifts. So there'll be that, but then if there's any major areas like the big circle, that would be maintained by a landscaping company or whatever property management company it'll probably, at least during the multi-phases of construction, it would be built into what we were doing. And the homeowners association would pay into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful. Do you have anything else, Chelsea?
Well, I was just gonna say, I'm glad Habitat's involved. And I'm really looking at, this is a project that we can all learn from too, from the start, and seeing which way it goes and evolves, and all the ways that you're talking about the community and community engagement, about involvement in their housing and their homes and what they do, what they're able to do, I mean, it's just the connecting to the individuals there, I think is really interesting, and I'd love to be able to be 5 years from this project after it's already been, everybody's been trying to live in it. But I think we'll all learn a lot about how this starts, survives, thrives.
Thank you. Pedro?
So the road, is the road a 1-lane road or 2-lane road? It's a 2-lane road, right?
2.
Yeah. I think what Jonathan's really talking about is a design problem here. Just as an example, just about every house has a view to either a road or a driveway, which to me, raises a lot of questions about whether or not people who are going to qualify for these homes are necessarily have to be subjected to these sort of adverse conditions. It would be nice, and the PERD, as Ms. Goodman rightly said, is about preserving open space, but I don't really see how we do that in this plan. I feel like I don't want to say anything else about the design other than to say that it's a cul-de-sac design. It's not, that's why it looks like a subdivision, because that's where the cul-de-sac came from. My final comment has to do with the grading, and Brett, you brought this up at the last meeting, but as an architect, I have plenty of experience with land, and you're going to be moving a lot of land here. It's a relatively sloping site, and you're going to have to dig a bunch of dirt out to build all these houses and to move the road and to do the whole thing. So to say that that this is the only design that's possible because of the grade, I think, I don't want to say disingenuous, but that's what it seems like to me.
Well, let me clarify then. Anything is possible, anything can be planned here, but when we're working with the natural topography that exists, it's generally our principle to try and mimic that drainage pattern as much as possible. In this case here, it keeps all of our drainage centrally located on the property, which actually, in my view, is a positive here. If we had, for instance, that southwest corner, if that was our low point, and we were draining all to that one site, I don't really love the idea of having all of our water being managed from this being in close proximity to our property boundary. And I don't know that I would feel comfortable or want to suggest that moving even more material in to create that circumstance is going to provide a better outcome. I mean, we can agree to disagree in terms of the concept of the road itself here. I mean, as I've said many times now, I wish I had more space to work with. I wish I had even more advantageous topography to work with it. But I have a lot that's shaped the way that it is, that has the topography that it does. And we're trying to maximize the density in a way that Habitat can develop homes that people want to buy.
I get that. There's a project that was designed in the 40s or 50s, maybe in the 30s or 40s by Frank Lloyd Wright in Pittsfield, called Cloverleaf. And I think taking a look at that project, could show you, it's an ingenious way of dealing with the road, the way that he did it. And it was a small site. It's on Victory Hill in Pittsfield, and it is what it is. Yes, that's it. I don't have anything.
All right, I have a bunch of engineering questions for you, Brent.
Please.
Okay. So I still want to understand how the units relate to the road in general, recognizing that the house might change, but is the intention to set the house back from the road a certain number of feet? It looks like it in your plan. Is that going to be adhered to? And I'm switching into like subdivision mode here. It is a PERD. You don't have a required setback from the road, but I'm asking, are you proposing one? It looks generally like you are.
We've tried to maintain some uniformity around the setback off the road here. To a certain degree, if the houses were closer to the road, that might be slightly less driveway. Is that what your concern is? We're ultimately I think you'll see most of the house sites are set just higher than the road so that all the runoff from that will drain towards the road into the catch basin network there that will ultimately make its way to the subsurface chambers that are centered on the property itself there.
Right, right. So let me back up. We'll start with the road then. So what is the width of the road? 18 feet? I think I saw one call out for 18 feet.
It's not dimensioned on the plans.
I think there's one call out.
Yeah, but that was for a driveway or something.
Go to the proposed landscape and grading
I
plan.
saw one that said 18 feet, but
Yeah.
that was not the road.
It looks like it's the road. There are arrows pointing to the road from either direction and an 18 in the middle of it.
Yeah, me.
So I'm assuming that the inner circle of the oval is a sidewalk.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Why wouldn't that go on the outside? So that when I come out of my unit, I can get right onto the sidewalk and I can walk that nice loop and I can say hi to Mrs. Smith and. Is that possible to do that? We don't want to.
I think it's possible. I think the goal was that people would have the ability to cross from their house, cross the road, a fairly narrow road, and then have one contiguous sidewalk around that entire loop if they wanted to almost use that, almost functioning like a track, I guess was the intention for that. If the thought is to have some additional sidewalk on the outer ring of the circle here, I don't think we would be opposed to that.
Personally, I think a sidewalk that is proximate to the house front door is more functional for the residents. I think, I want to just make sure, Pedro pointed it out, but I want to make sure the rest of our board understands this site is definitely not flat. And so, the site is like this. And so it's not going to be a track, it's going to be an up and a down and an up and a down, like a saddle, more so than a track.
Well, there's the road coming to it.
Right, yeah. So the sidewalk on the outside of the loop would be more consistent. And then if people had like little stepping stones, if they want to put it in, they want to be able to walk from their front door to the sidewalk. That seems to make more sense from a design standpoint.
Do we need a sidewalk?
I don't know if we need a sidewalk. I don't know if they want to be burdened by the extra cost of the sidewalk. But it is nice in this kind of density to have.
It's an exercise area, you got walk a couple laps in the morning.
18 feet as a roadway, two-way
Very
roadway
narrow.
is narrow for kids on bikes, people walking, and two-way traffic, right?
So they could make the whole thing 24 feet wide and have no sidewalk. And save
Or
money,
even 22.
22 feet.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, something for you guys to think about.
It's my understanding that the goal of this review is to have this type of discussion for the board, I think, to decide what your priorities are or your concerns are for us to take under consideration and to pass on to the select board for when we appear before them on March 6th.
If you do a wider road, go from 18 up to 22, the town is going to be able to plow that whole, 11-foot traveled width in one direction, 11-foot traveled width in the other direction. You don't have to worry about sidewalk snow clearing. So there may be some benefits to that approach.
And rural roads don't have sidewalk. And if you want this to feel
What
like,
is this? Is this rural or is it?
well, this is
I don't know.
suburban. Very suburban.
And I'm sorry, Brent, I didn't look at your road section.
They don't have
Are
one.
there wing curbs being proposed?
They don't have one.
Okay. I would say you wouldn't want any curbs at all.
No.
Maybe a mountable curb on the uphill side.
But in terms of reconsideration of the road width and or change of the sidewalk placement or location here, I think those are all very reasonable things that we'd be happy to reconsider and appreciate the comment.
And then, to Jonathan's point about the configuration and protecting open space, I haven't seen Cloverleaf. I'm gonna go look that up though, 'cause that sounds very interesting. I'm familiar with a couple of different traditional neighborhood developments in the area. And the houses are, they're like within 20 feet of the road. They're fairly close. So that your front porch extends into that space, or your stoop or your flower pots or whatever, and that helps create more strength in community, but then it also is going to give you more space in the rear of the property, which you could leave vegetated with the vegetation that's there, and not have to add landscaping in the back to create a buffer. So, by pulling things forward to the road, that could achieve two things: giving you a deeper buffer, more open space in the back, and creating that proximity to the road that can strengthen the community connections.
I think that's all. And I didn't have a chance to ask earlier, Pedro, where is that neighborhood that you're referencing? I'm not familiar with that by that name, but.
They refer to as Victory Hill.
West Pittsfield, Southeast, I've never heard that expression, to be honest, so.
Well. Fred.
It was
Clark,
up where
remember.
Berkshire Hills Country Club was. Crane Avenue.
Okay.
Could I just ask for clarification on how close the house is to the road? Because I'm looking at the site plan, which is small, but isn't it 40 feet from the road, each house, Brent?
No, they're 20.
20.
Currently on this plan.
Right.
They're 20.
And so your suggestion was from the planning board was closer than 20 feet to the road?
I didn't see 20 feet. Where did you see 20 feet?
Well, it's just scaled.
Oh, you scaled it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to slow down the traffic around that loop.
Well, you can do lots of things with close to the road. I mean, we have zones in the town where we have a 0-foot setback. So, and we have development patterns in Housatonic where we've got a 10-foot setback. So there are plenty of precedents in the community for a close setback.
I mean, Housatonic.
For most of the houses on the southern portion there, they are 20 feet off the road. The houses on the northern side, some of those do approach 40 feet off the road, which would give an opportunity to bring those closer than. I think we have the space to move them closer to the road. I don't know that they necessarily have to be 40 feet on that north side.
Given so we're not doing a site plan review and we're not doing a subdivision review, so we're kind of in this like gray zone of like, this is like just random feedback I feel like we're giving you at this point. Okay, so then as far as the road grading is concerned, I think Pedro's point about cuts and fills are well worth noting. Have you done a cut fill analysis, and are you trying to balance on site, recognizing that you're gonna have to excavate a lot for those stormwater chambers and
Right. We will have a slight net export, I believe, by the conclusion of this here, but we're actually cutting from what we originally proposed in September. We're actually cutting more on that north side, trying to lower that grade and actually provide more of a buffer there. I've not done an exact quantity here, honestly. Some of the feedback on the layout that we have for the 30 houses, we received the middle of January. So it was a hard push to even update the plans to make the submittal here. We can have that quantity certainly for the select board here, but the goal was to try and make the grade of the road coming off of North Plain Road and throughout the loop there, trying to make that as safe and gentle as possible while working with the topography.
And then in terms of, and maybe this is a question for Caroline or Aaron, in terms of Brent's mentioning of a phasing plan, is the intention to install all of the roadway and infrastructure in the whole development and then phase in the house building? Or is there an intention to only do a portion of the roadway system and then do, deeper into the property at some future phase?
The intention is to do the whole infrastructure at the beginning and then add the houses as we go along. And our hope
Okay,
is
so
and our hope is to be able to as at the same time that the Mass Works infrastructure of the main roadway goes in, we're able to come in and also pour the first foundations so that when the road's done, we'll already be able to get started on the houses.
Okay, so phase one will be the full roadway and the infrastructure. Might it not include all the roadway and infrastructure associated with the duplex units or units 25 through 29? Would those potentially be utilities and stuff would be stubbed at a future point?
I thought, Brent, maybe you can adjust that, but I thought we were trying to get it all at the beginning end.
I think the intention is for all of the community road, sewer, drainage, water mains, hydrants, that those would all be installed with stubs available. And then as the houses are built, they would have their service lines connect to what is already in the road, bring the stubs out obviously beyond the paved edge there for a connection here. But the goal would be that upon conclusion of the Mass Works infrastructure grant here, the site has been rough graded. We have a road in place. We have a functioning drainage system. And we have stubs for utilities for the houses to be built as they're laid out on the site based on the homeowner selection, style home, and other considerations that Habitat will have by the time they are ready to physically start building the houses.
And so I guess I'm still not clear, and I understand you're getting the infrastructure in with the Mass Works grant. So is the requirement of the grant to provide a stub for every unit in that first phase? You've got these two nodes that are recessed off your main looping road, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then 25 through 29. They're sort of two little nodes that come off the main looping road. Will the infrastructure go in for those in this first phase too?
To be honest, we've not written the construction documents for that yet here. And I know with the new DPW superintendent here, he'll be more actively involved. Frankly, once we have a special permit for this here to ensure that when we put this out to bid, Habitat is getting everything that they need to have a shovel-ready site for houses and move forward.
Okay. So we don't know.
One of
That's okay.
the requirements for special permit looks like for a PERD though, is a development plan that has specific time periods for each phase. And it sounds from the discussion here that you guys really haven't defined the phases that clearly. Are you gonna be able to present a schedule for phases to the select board?
Not how you would do the final piece.
Thank you, Malcolm. We'll have to work on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
All right,
Does it?
so
I mean, it seems like a pretty good idea.
question about the stormwater system.
Yes.
Who is responsible for maintaining that?
Our intention is that the town of Great Barrington would take ownership of the drainage system itself in terms of cleaning catch basins, et cetera. Here, it's our intention that would be the case.
Does the town have any experience with infiltrator systems?
No, I don't think we do. The town usually contracts out
Yeah.
sweeping, catch basin, vacuuming, storm scepter, cleaning, those sorts of things. So I assume we do the same thing with the trigger.
Can you,
And town meeting has to vote to accept the roads, right?
yeah, I think,
To accept the, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Brent, you've
And
done
really,
these. You've done
I'm sorry,
these storm scepter systems before, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I know you're doing deep sumps, but I think the other thing is those isolator rows, just so that it's easier to clean, because they seem to get sediment in them no matter what.
Okay.
Okay, so that's TBD. Chris, is that kind of what you're saying?
What is Tuesday?
The stormwater system maintenance and operation?
No, I don't think it's TBD.
Okay,
I mean, I think your question was, does the town have experience? We contract it out. That's how we approach it. Was that your question?
yeah, I'm a little bit confused because I understand we contract out the cleaning of the catch basins, right? But the infiltration units are different and they require a different maintenance.
We've not done that.
Okay.
I imagine we would contract that out.
Okay. Great. Lighting. Can you do 3000K instead of 5000K? 5000 is very bright and very blue. And very
I don't see any issue with that. We can take a look at the photometrics, and if we need another pole to give proper illumination, we've got the flexibility to do that.
It's just the color of the light.
Oh, just,
It
okay,
shouldn't affect your photometrics.
okay.
It's a more warm light than a cold blue light.
So are those infiltration systems, so is that the superintendent? Has he looked at it?
I think that is a detail that needs to be worked out at some point in the future. Back to the road where the stub comes into the oval, Brent. That's a ginormous hammerhead area of pavement. Is there an opportunity there for a little like planted center area that would not need to be plowed?
Another roundabout.
Not a traffic circle is what they're called, but just less pavement. That those are areas are really hard to plow.
I think we would,
Back up and they push snow everywhere.
I think we could, I'd probably meet with the fire chief just to talk about ensuring what he wants to see for a sweep coming in there, but I think that would give us an opportunity to reduce some pavement and.
Yeah, you could, usually it's drivable by the fire truck. They usually just go like straight through it if they need to. It
Okay.
doesn't need to be like raised area. It doesn't need to be the roundabout. It doesn't need granite curb on 3 different levels. It's just. Like a
It's
green
grass
space.
instead of pavement, okay.
How about the space in front of 21 and 22?
21 and 22. Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah. Looks like a big parking lot.
Yeah, there may be opportunities for pavement reduction. And Carolyn, you may have mentioned this before, but is it shared driveways are generally not something that works out in your communities? Just, you could almost like cut these all down.
It
Cut the number
never,
of times.
it never works out. I can tell you, being the director here for 15 years, between dogs and shared driveways are the things that people fight about the most.
Okay, all right. I
And
tried
and
to
it's
head
not the
out.
dog they're upset about, it's their leave behinds.
Yeah, understood. Okay, I
They kill the grass.
think that was most of my questions. Comments.
Those are really great comments, thank you.
So could you talk about the open space? Because it looks like you've confined all the open space with the exception of the center circle to the perimeter. So none of the rest of the project is open space, is that what you're saying?
Because I understand your. I guess I didn't understand what the question was in that, Jonathan, I'm sorry.
Can you go to your open space plan? I think you have it laid out there.
There's a calculation that's second.
Yeah. So the open space, I think Jonathan's trying to get a handle on what is defined as the open space. So you've got your common space that's listed as 34,000.
Oh, there you go, the square feet too, 34,000 square feet.
34,360 square feet in the circle. Is there open space elsewhere on site? Like what is the, where is the open space?
Where'd you find the calculation, Chris?
It should be in the center of the circle.
Side of the circle is that's the primary defined open space. We have buffer area behind the houses. But the primary contiguous open space is currently it's focused on the center of the road network here. I think the suggestion that was made with regards to reducing the setback of houses from the edge of the road towards the front of the house, if we were to consider maintaining a 20-foot uniform setback here, that would provide a better opportunity for a more contiguous open space behind the units themselves. I think we're happy to look at how that might function with the topography, the plantings, and the. I think Beth, to a certain degree, that's interrelated to how in terms of the homeowner association, how the areas of responsibility are maintained. That open space will all be more clearly defined in terms of who has rights to what space, as well as who has responsibility for for maintaining those spaces. That agreement will address both of those points, correct?
Jonathan, the requirement for open space is it?
2,500 square feet of usable open space per dwelling and per.
2,500 of usable open space per
I
dwelling.
mean, that may include the common green in the circle. It may include the areas around each unit. It just says usable open space, doesn't say by whom or in common.
No,
Right,
but they have to delineate what's open space and what, and what the condo owner gets.
could you provide a plan that like kind of hatches out what is open space? That we recently had a different development that was using an open space calculation. It's very helpful to everyone to see what is the calculation of open space with just a fairly transparent solid hatch or something through all the areas that are part of that open space calculation.
Sure, and I think I'd want to have the opportunity to review with the Habitat team that suggestion of moving some houses towards the road here and better seeing how, based on a future understanding of what that eventual HOA document will look like here, see if maybe we can even prioritize having a draft of that for the select board to review, and as a part of that diagram show and hatched areas both behind as well as that center grass area here, what those different areas are quantified at. We'd certainly be able to do that. Certainly, we're exceeding our minimum requirements, but I think we can more clearly present that for the select board. We're happy to do so.
Pedro, what did you want to?
That's what I was gonna say, that your suggestion is for the hearing, not for us.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Thank you. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear about that.
Because it's another 40,000.
But they do have to be able to show 75,000 square feet of open space.
Yeah, and I
And we
don't,
only see
see that.
4,000.
but there's little,
Well, they're
there's
taking
little
20 feet around the perimeter,
bits, open space 3,200 on lot
but that's,
parcel 3 and open
that
space.
doesn't really create much value as open space.
Okay, so let's either look at that or request a waiver.
Okay. All right, anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, what is the visitor parking for?
Visitors?
Yeah.
Jonathan, we talked about each of the- but remember we did have.
Well, look where.
Carolyn, please.
Look where the visitor
Yeah.
parking is.
But what if I want to take my kid to the bus stop? And that's a nice place to like pull in.
Idea.
I believe Carolyn has an answer to the question.
Yeah, I do. So,
Let
so
me tell you, everyone.
So we had a number of questions regarding parking at our meetings. And we actually asked people how often they had company. And our experience is that oftentimes if people have a lot of company, they'll end up parking where it's in other people's areas. So part of the conversation that we all had was, if you purchase a home here, the expectation is like you would have visitor parking so that there's not like blocking in and arguments about parking. So again, it's about how do you live together and make sure that you build the design so that it's best to, not have the problem to begin with. So people really felt that having a parking area for visitors made sense to them. And we're hoping to have those covered for solar as well. So, hopefully in the future, we might be able to have some charging stations there.
It's a long ways from anybody's house. So.
Well, you drop off your crock pot and
You get a little exercise.
you walk along the road shoulder.
No, I'll just park in their driveway.
And then you can say hi to all of the other people.
You
pass
get that
along.
option. I have to walk visitor parking. So that's fine. Anything else, board members? Malcolm?
No, I actually did have a question about the phases, but you granted me on this, so there we go.
All right, Tom. Yeah. Jackie?
Hi.
Peter? Okay.
I mean, I guess, I think this is for Carolyn. How does it typically work with the
When do you completely turn it over to the homeowners association? At what % of your build out?
We usually stay with the development for 5 years after completion. And we kind of do it as a, it's sort of like if you have a big table and Habitat initially is sitting at the table. And as people grow their capacity to oversee these kind of things themselves, they've learned how do you choose a property manager when we're not there helping you anymore. So we kind of get further and further and further until we're actually still there if they need us, but they're making the decisions. And we actually do trainings on like, how do you run a board meeting? We do role playing on nobody wants to be the treasurer. Well, somebody's got to be the treasurer. So, just all of those kind of things. And that's part of the Habitat plan.
That's great. Thank you for offering that.
Thank you for
I feel
asking.
like I could use that.
I've actually asked that question
Have
before
you?
as she was answering it.
Carolyn-
Thank you for answering.
Carolyn, do you think you might have some common community space? Like when you have a condo owners meeting, where are they gonna meet?
In the center.
Well, Jonathan, it was interesting because when we posed to people, like, did they want to have like, what would they want to have as a structure? If there was a structure in the green area in the middle, most of them wanted like a covered pavilion where they could have like holiday, in the summer barbecue and different things like that. So we would probably try to always organize it so it's in the summertime because it's easier usually to get people together in the summer than it is in the winter. And they would be required to have a certain number of association meetings. And we have been lucky with the realtor company has always said, like, if you guys need the office space for any kind of meetings, they would allow us to do that as well.
There's always the who's dome.
That's right.
That's true. They could walk to it.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris, I'm confused what form our recommendations need to, because we've been like sprawling and making comments about the plan layout and things like that. Is it necessary for our recommendation to go right now, or can we sort of review the minutes and pull together a bullet list of considerations for the select board ahead of their March 6th meeting?
I don't see why you couldn't move ahead with the recommendation overall. You had additional comments on the designs. Do you think you want some time to put those in writing and then vote on them? So
That's what I was thinking.
I
Yeah,
think that's fine.
I mean, I'm just
You have
guessing.
another
I don't-
meeting yet?
Yeah,
You've done your review, that'll give us a chance to reduce this into writing and
so if
it's fine.
if everyone's okay with it, I mean, I get the sense we want to send a positive recommendation to the select board with specific comments about the design to follow. Is that acceptable? Can we do that? No,
I mean, that's what I agree with.
Jonathan, who's
Shaking my head.
why
yeah.
not? Jonathan, it's curious. I
Uh,
mean, wait,
well,
you
first
may
of-
be
first of all,
against
you
me
have
on
to
the first premise of
you have-
positive recommendation, that's fine.
You have to understand that the select board, no one on the select board reads plans.
I know, that's what I'm concerned about, but that's, I
So
don't,
thanks to Fred Clark, they're the SPGA, and they don't know anything.
so I don't want to get into that issue. It is what it is, and we're not gonna change that. And I think our role is to offer those comments then, because we look at a lot of plans. But I think we've had such a wide ranging bit of commentary and discussion tonight, it may be hard to pull all that together. Anybody on the side?
If I could speak to this?
Yes.
Hi, thanks. I'm just looking again at your procedures in 8.5.9 in your bylaw.
Mhm.
And it describes, we're talking about a definitive plan, development plan, right? We're all in agreement. We're not doing preliminary again. Am I right on that?
This is the
Yeah.
definitive plan. yes.
Okay, So it says specifically, you shall hold the public hearing in accordance with subdivision regulations to determine the appropriateness of any roadway. And if we requested any waivers. And Brent, we didn't need any waivers, right?
Right.
So we don't have any waivers. And then it says the hearings may be held simultaneously with the ones proceeding with the Board of Selectmen. But there will be distinct findings and votes. So I think you
This is not a
would
public
need
hearing.
to end up
Yeah,
with.
we're not
That
having,
requires a public hearing.
yeah, we're not having a public hearing tonight, so we're
Has to be advertised.
assuming that you will have to come back to this board at some point in the future with the specifics of the roadway design, possibly with some of the comments we made tonight incorporated.
So
I think.
so is
all
your
we are-
question what you need to do before the Board of Selectmen act? Is that what your question is?
Normally, what we do is we send a positive or a negative recommendation, and if we have constructive comments that pertain to the design, we incorporate those comments in with the recommendation. So it'd be, in this case, maybe a positive recommendation to the board with provisions that the road width be increased to incorporate a walking path and that houses be moved to within 20 feet of the road, or, you know, whatever, but do we want to do that now? Should we just like plow through it?
And then you can do additional comments, subsequently that we can look at, but that would be helpful if you can sock that one out and then we can proceed with this Board of Selectmen.
I just don't know that you guys are going to be revising the plans ahead of the March 6th meeting. What's your process?
Just speak for myself here, my intention was to take the feedback that you might have in a form of a suggested recommendation or condition to the select board and take the time between February 9th now and at least a week in advance of the select board to have the discussion with the Habitat team about possibly moving some of those houses closer to the road, widening the road, looking at getting some answers with respect to the specific utilities on that south side, or speaking with the DPW in terms of how they want to see us address that as a part of our eventual construction documents, reconsidering which side of the road we actually have the sidewalk on here. I think you made a very fair point with that. I think I'm not sure if it was Jonathan or Pedro, if they were both suggesting an idea that, and if you could clarify this, it would be helpful for me to go back to the team. It was part of the suggestion that we look at for the houses that we have laid out around the roadway, considering angling those houses to not necessarily be perfectly square with the road itself. Did I understand that correctly? Or if that is a comment that you have or a suggestion that you have, we would like to hear at least what that is so we can consider if that's something that we think makes sense for our house and driveway layout. If I misheard that, that's fine too, but if you had those types of comments, that would be helpful for us to hear.
I'm not getting that was the sense.
Okay.
If I may.
I got a lot of notes here, so I was trying to write fast, sorry.
If I may, I think Brett is right. I don't know where it says that we have any authority here or any procedure with regards to a recommendation or even to make suggestions to him. He can, in my opinion, he can take them and the group can take our comments however they want. I don't think that we're even required to submit a recommendation for this plan. I think we're kind of assuming or floating into site plan review mode, which I don't think is relevant here. That would be my preference.
Yeah, I agree. This feels like a little squishy process. I guess I was trying to, do we feel strongly about any of the comments made tonight? You don't care? Okay.
You don't think it's gonna get too locked in if it goes to the select board and then they like approve this is the thing, and then they come back for site plan, and then it's like.
Despite my comments, I respect the work that Habitat is doing, and they feel that this is going to be a successful project for them. So if it is locked into this, then, power to them.
I thought the comment, didn't you have the comment, Brandy, about like just getting rid of the sidewalks and just by increasing the width in the road, just that's all?
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't know if Brett, because I think he was still on the sidewalk. I mean, I think getting rid of the sidewalk is a great idea for the association not having to deal with the sidewalk in the future.
My overall point was to say, we will consider whatever that recommended, whether it's the elimination of the sidewalk, relocation of the sidewalk, or just simply widening the road here, whatever the board decides to make as a recommendation for that, we will take that back to the Habitat team, evaluate that, what that looks like in terms of our operations for, building this out under the master works, as well as the long-term operation and maintenance. I think it's a fair suggestion and likely one that we would take advantage of here. So whatever that recommendation the board has, we will take that under advisement and be prepared to address the select board and how we've responded to that.
Chris, I think in a reading of the regulation, we really don't have anything but advisory opinion here, right?
Correct.
Okay. So Pedro is correct in that, but I'm reading this again. I don't even see that we are making a recommendation to this.
Well, it's a special permit, so yes,
So under the
recommendation always.
general
with a special
provision.
permit.
Okay.
So Brent, you might consider losing the 7 crosswalks. It's a little ridiculous.
Sure sound that way if we're gonna hit the sidewalks there. No, that's we wanted to show an effort to provide a way for people to safely cross the road. It's just a small road. Yes, it's going to be a sidewalk on the other. It's shown as a sidewalk on the other side. I'm not saying that it's going to be. Frankly, the more we're having this discussion and I'm thinking about that, the idea of just a wider road, the ability for the town to more easily maintain both sides of that, less of an obligation on the HOA to shovel salt sidewalks here. Those all sound to me like improvements that will be better for the town, better for the homeowners and for the association to manage. So we appreciate that.
In light of the fact that everything we've said this evening is advisory, I think we'll just let the minutes stand as advisory information.
Do you want to consolidate it?
I don't, I know Kim is super good and she's
It's
captured
Kim's job.
all of it.
Now there's pressure.
Now it's gonna be like extra reduction because now you have to think.
The team certainly heard you. This is at the end of the day, a town project, so we're all on the same side. Fred is here, Habitat is here, Brent is here, I'm here. We heard your comments about lights, about landscaping, about maintenance of everything.
And driveway.
The driveways, the increased roadway width in lieu of providing separate driveway. The area at the neck of the entry road. Properly delineating or clearly delineating the required usable open space. And the timing and phases of the development. So we've heard, I think those were some of the major comments that the team can address.
Okay. So, thank you, Chris. If you weren't taking notes and you just did that all from memory, I'm impressed.
Yeah, that was pretty. Could I just ask though, if you are going to take a vote to recommend to the planning, to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, that part.
If we are, yes, we are.
Yes.
We're about to.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So we do have.
Oh, there is somebody who has their hand up.
PCA
PCA,
bill.
very patient hand raiser.
We need a clear identification.
Yeah, please identify yourself. Hello, you can go ahead and speak, PCA.
Or is that Carolyn? Didn't she say she was at the PCA in Washington?
Whoever
DC?
got their hand raised and
Chris unmuted me.
you have PCA. Can you just, if you have a comment, go ahead and make it. Otherwise, we'll.
They might be on.
Okay, we'll put their
I
hand
think
down.
Carolyn phoned in maybe originally.
Maybe. Okay, are there any other folks in the public that want to make a comment? Anybody here in the room? No?
Oh, PCA is back up. You're unmuted, PCA. whoever you are.
PCA? Please comment alternatively? I don't know.
Might not know their PCA.
Hello, if you have your hand raised and you have a comment, can you please make the comment? Okay, I don't think they have a comment, so they aren't speaking and they are unmuted, so. All right, so we'll move on then. Do we have a motion to send a positive recommendation to the select board for the Habitat project? Thank you, Jeremy. Do we have a second? Malcolm seconded. There's further discussion on the matter. No? Okay. Malcolm, what's your vote?
Aye.
Jonathan, what's your vote?
I'm gonna abstain.
Jeremy, what's your vote? Pedro, what's your vote?
I'll abstain as well.
What?
Hey, you got your majority.
Okay, and I'll vote aye. All right, so. Thank you, I guess.
So this board will see then, I think probably after the special permit, the final road layout, schedule public hearing for the subdivision.
That'll be sometime in March or April. Okay, great. Thank you all very much for your work and for hearing our earlier comments. We appreciate that. And we're looking forward to you guys being with Great Crown.
Thank you all for your help and your time.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
All right. Does anybody need a humanity break? Everybody okay? Okay, great.
Humanity, what's that?
That would be a bio break. Does anyone need to use the bathroom?
Do you have a water fountain?
Is there a water fountain? There is not a water fountain.
No idea.
But there are cups and a faucet in the kitchen.
Do you drink your water? Out of the
It's not who's, this is
Very
great.
good.
Oh, geez.
Do you have glass
Most of them want
in
to
there?
clean.
Does anybody?
Oh,
Oh, good. That's my humanity.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. So while Jackie is getting
Humanity.
humanized. Go left and then right. Left,
To the right of the
and
elevator.
then, yeah,
The elevator,
the elevator. Don't go on the elevator. Are there any snacks in it?
We didn't send the request. to Bring back snacks.
Somebody said.
Bring the chocolate.
All right, let's see. So we have some items under bylaw amendments. The first one is to send a letter to the select board recommending modifications to the driveway bylaw. Jonathan, do you want to say anything more about this one?
No, I think we've talked about it.
Everyone Yeah. Do we need to review the specifics of it for anybody? This is,
I move that we send it on.
thank you, Malcolm, do the second.
Second.
Jonathan seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Malcolm,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Pedro,
Aye.
no abstaining. I'll say, I also.
We didn't want to abstain just for the.
Excellent. Okay, hold on, let me go back to the next one. So the next one is zoning review proposed zoning bylaw amendments to be transmitted to the select board, including amending the B2 zone use regulation for multifamily and mixed use development.
We're gonna,
You wanna go
I
through each of
propose we
these?
should deal with each of these individually.
That's fine. Fine.
So I propose, I move that these,
I'm having trouble finding the language.
Chris, you put those in an email.
This is,
He did.
this was, yeah, Chris was.
Yeah. Sending them.
The draft B2 is,
Yeah.
B2 zone amendments, we're in the email, yeah.
Yeah. Can you read those to us?
I can.
I was gonna move, that we, send these along, but I'm not sure what the motion is. It's to,
To send,
transmit it to the select board.
Oh, wait, Chris
Is
is
this for a
making,
special hearing?
Chris is making suggestions about changes to the B2 that we haven't talked about.
Amendments to B2.
This is
For public hearing, right? Yeah.
they refer it back to us.
Yeah,
This is the, these are the B2 changes. Oh, I see. This is not what we discussed last time. Okay, thank you.
No, this is Chris trying to
Tone it down.
what we discussed last time.
Oh, I thought that was number 3. See, number 2 is the parcel on the R2 to R1A.
Right.
So what's the B2?
It's at the,
It's in the body of an email. that is-
Can I
This
have it,
one?
Chris? I have it before me. If you would like, I can read it out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Please do. I'm gonna put it on screen while you do that. So the B2, right, it was in a Word document on the.
I'm just gonna read the summary in your email.
Thanks.
Summary of the email. States the attached is some text I'll present to you at the next meeting, February 9th. In brief, the proposal would A, amend the table of use regulations to allow multi-unit dwellings of 9 or more and mixed use to be developed by right in the B2 zone, which achieves goal 1 of his email, which was to do just that.
Promote
Uh,
housing.
He has a note to that suggestion. Says some development of B2 areas might trigger special permits under floodplain and or water quality protection district regulations regardless. B, add a footnote to both the above rows and a new requirement that at least 10% of the units be affordable and not more than 100 AMI for 20 years in order to be a by right development.
That's inclusionary zoning. That would be inclusionary
No,
zoning.
because, well, we,
It's different from incentivizing. This
It
a-
is, you're
This is a
right.
requirement.
no, but this is only if you want to do a by right development, you have to, so it is incentivizing. Is if you want your development by right, then you have to include 10% affordable. If you don't, then you have to go through the process.
You're both right. It's both.
Yeah, it is.
Incentives and inclusion.
But I wouldn't call it inclusionary because it's not mandatory,
because you can opt out of
but
it.
it's inclusion. Make sense?
You just have to go. through.
Not the way it was written, not the way I read it anyway.
Well, I'm just reading the summary.
Go ahead.
C, consider amending the table of dimensional requirements to allow up to 4 stories and 40 feet instead of the current 3 stories and 40 feet. Continue to require site plan review.
And then below, he has the actual,
Yeah, then the actual text is below that,
Mhm,
which I think he's got up on the screen.
which is that,
mhm.
yes.
So a few things. Last time we talked about the mixed use housing incentive zone, and the fact that we want to do some community outreach in order, before bringing it to town board. That'll take some time. And the mixed use incentive zone was pretty complicated text. So after the discussion last time, I went back to my desk and I thought, well, some objectives could be met with just revisions to the existing B2 zone allowable uses. Keeping in mind that the B2 zone extends in places other than Stockbridge Road. So we've just been talking about Stockbridge Road. Now we're back to the B2 zone
Like everywhere.
everywhere, which includes Stockbridge Road, it includes the area from the Red Bridge south to, let's say, Berkshire Bank on the street. And then now we're in the downtown zone, and then south of downtown, from here to the MXD, which is the roundabout area. And then again, south of the MXD, which is like Ward's Nursery, south to National Grid. So there's, the B2 zone is bigger than just Stockbridge Road. So if these regulations were to go through or were to pass, they would impact all of those areas. The B2 zone currently does not allow multifamily by right. It does not allow mixed use by right. So those seem like 2 areas that could be considered to open up additional housing development. But as Pedro and Jonathan were saying, if the town were to grant that as by right development, then the town would also want, in this case, affordable housing to be included. It's a give and take.
I'll tell you, I am totally opposed to by right development for projects of big houses, big buildings. I think what we're looking at is essentially commercial development or residential properties, in B2 zone. And I'm opposed to private development.
But what Chris didn't say that this does, is it also provides another option. Well, it provides a by right option, which hopefully incentivizes it to, the question that we left with was that, since building a medium-sized box store is super cheap and super easy and allowed in the zone, that it gives another option, or hopefully, I don't know if it's as desirable, but maybe.
That was gonna be my question to Malcolm, is how can you justify not allowing housing by right, but justify 20,000 square feet of retail space?
Well, we're talking about, I'm actually not opposed to incentives for density, incentives. But I don't want to see a big 3-story or 4-story, a 40-foot building, ugly building on Stockbridge Road. And if we do it by right, there's no control over what kind of Stockbridge Road.
So my question back to all of us is following up on what Malcolm's saying. Well, I'm not answering my phone, I'm sorry. But no, I want to stop, that's my brother. Stop, sorry.
He doesn't have a comment?
Yes, he's calling you from Tampa, Florida. No, basically is, okay, so you're worried about this ugly thing, or these ugly things over which we have no control because we're giving everybody by right building, but what I was wondering is, what controls do we actually have? Are our hands all tied behind our back?
Well, special permits, you can deny.
But without going to special permit, that we're doing by right, do we have any control over? I mean, I'm just thinking of the built.
There would be site plan
In
review.
this site.
Which is like a negotiation.
Right, yeah, but I'm
A lot of
so,
times people agree to things.
So
and we're,
Yeah, this part.
because this is my
Even
not
though-
understanding how the code gets built, because I'm thinking about, well, one, well, are the building materials good? Is the project worth building at all? Is it a blight, or is it, they just get the right to build it? And what controls do we actually have?
we don't have any say over any of that.
No,
Means and methods are entirely up to the developer.
all that would
But
be
then I'm asking about then setbacks
setbacks can
and
remain.
That's
like
okay.
the trees on the zoning, about trees along the street, the landscaping and all of that.
But a lot of
And
it,
let me talk, and also parking places, the location of the parking places.
It's all in
That
there.
can all be in the zoning.
It's all already.
Yeah,
There.
it's
So
already there.
well, that's what I'm asking about. What do we consider protection? We might not like the actual building of the stucco with whatever, but is it being built in a way that we're going to get a corridor that's going to look like something that's not, it might be polyglot in its
First of all,
its look.
we're really not talking about corridor. We're just talking about housing. Because we're not doing anything else to promote the corridor.
Well, I'm talking
We're not
about the
doing anything to
infill,
promote
whatever that
walkability, we're
infill
not
is.
doing anything to promote drivability, we're not doing anything to improve the beauty of the corridor, we're not doing anything at all with the corridor except to promote housing. And that housing is something we have to do, but at the expense of Stockbridge Road and the corridor, I'd much prefer to see a complete plan of what we're gonna do with Stockbridge Road before we give a green light to people to start building big buildings.
But, I mean,
And to answer your question, Pedro, yeah, I mean, people can build other things, but does that mean we should take away the right to review one thing because somebody could build an ugly building?
If
for
we're
another
trying to
purpose?
get housing, then we have to give. and
First of
take.
all, this does
Because-
not create any housing.
Of course it does.
No, it doesn't.
If-
All it does is enable housing. We enabled
No,
affordable
I
housing
totally
in
disagree with
the.
housing is enabled now. It's not getting built for some reason.
Yeah, across the country. It's not a great balance.
You said it for some reason, and one of those reasons is the meetings that take place in places like this.
You know, I don't buy that.
Well, go talk to a developer.
Yeah, well,
Let me, if I can move on to another subject.
It was
I
on
did-
NPR
I made
today.
these little diagrams if you want to look
Yeah.
at them, because any developer can come up to us with a project the size of the diagram that are in place in this area. 75% lot coverage is humongous. And the select board cannot deny that if it meets zoning. So somebody can come to town, propose, one of these gigantic, ginormous projects. Like, I've got 2 lots here, this is the Cove lot. And it's just a simple diagram of the Goodwill site. And you can see, I can run the numbers. So the lot coverage on the Goodwill site is 23,849 square feet. Multiply that by 3. That gives you of square footage to build that the town really can't deny because it's in the zoning.
no, the town can deny because it doesn't.
And the town will then get sued and
lose.
lose. They'll lose because it's in the zoning.
Have you accounted for parking requirements?
Well, take 15% out of these numbers. It doesn't matter the parking. I mean, I knew that John
Okay,
was
so
gonna
how
beat
do
me up at this.
how do we fix that?
We don't fix it. We allow people to do it. It's there now. This
Let
is
him
the
get to-
zoning
let
that
him
the
get to
town
his
has
point.
approved. This is the zoning that the town has approved to build it. Now, it doesn't have to be just housing. It could be a Walmart. It could be a gigantic new strip mall development. It could be whatever it is. Humongous size there. And they can do 20,000 feet of it by right. When it comes to housing, we don't let you do anything by right. The
Because
only
it's
thing you can
special
build
park.
by right in this zone is a single family home or a 2-family home.
So your argument is because people can build a big ugly commercial development, we should allow them to build a big ugly residential development.
No, that's not my argument at all. My argument is to say that what can be built there now is huge and ugly and the town can't deny it.
So,
That's what I'm telling you, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter.
and that's a good thing?
No, it's not a good thing.
So how do we?
This is
solve it?
not this is not a
I think you
qualifying.
guys are talking past each other, so it,
I mean, you make an argument, but I don't get it.
it's an equity issue, right? He's saying you can build a big ugly commercial, so why not be able to build a big ugly residential also?
You could build a big ugly
So
single
why don't
family
we
home.
fix the big ugly commercial part?
I think we want to do a corridor study. I think Chris was trying to give us an option, and we're having a discussion, right? So this is the option, right? So Chris put an option on the table. Since the last meeting, my suggestion was, I think we need to do more work on the corridor, because we were talking about some pretty dramatic changes. I think, Eileen misquoted me on that. But anyway, and so Chris was like, okay, what can we do to create more opportunity for housing, maybe as a patch in the short term for this town meeting?
Okay,
Okay,
so,
it's like a intermediate step, if you will.
okay,
But to Chris's point, and I think it's an important one, the B2 is much more than the corridor. We were really only looking at the corridor on Suffrage Road before. And we have to consider, as he said, that the B2 extends, from, I don't know, Christie Farms and all of that down to the south end of town, plus fairgrounds.
and it's the other ones that are the MXP as well.
No, MXD is its own.
It's a zone.
So
It's a lone zone.
It's not an overlay.
So it's not really.
I think our discussion was about by right development, which I think is relevant to what Chris is proposing. And so I don't understand, to me, it doesn't make any sense. You want control over something, but then you're willing to give up control over other things. And if we're trying to incent, what we're doing, we're only giving up control for things that fall into the incentives that we are proposing or promoting, which is to provide affordable housing.
It's a compromise.
If you're doing a housing project and so you're building a housing project. But then if you're gonna give us 10% of your units that you build on them, if you're gonna let people live there who would otherwise not be able to afford to live there, then we have to give something back.
So the by right would only
That's it. It's just
be
that.
if there was 10% affordable housing.
That's it.
That would be one of the
That's it.
incentives.
That's the only incentive.
Pedro, could you explain this a little better?
I don't know that it's, is it worth explaining? I know
Well,
you're making a point with
it is,
but
because
I don't really-
he raises an important issue.
Okay.
The two things that I just wanted to take a couple lots because, you know, we're worried about bulk and height and the whole thing here. So I just took a couple of lots and just did a quick little zoning envelope with them. And what I learned from both of these lots, and the code is a little special because it's a weird lot. It's a weird shaped
So
lot.
this is
That's the code.
On
The
screen
fish
now.
one?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
code lot. If you look at the numbers, you know, that envelope that I drew there does not even meet the lot coverage. And it basically takes up that entire space. The rest of this lot is basically undevelopable. So I just wanted to maximize the building envelope and to see what would happen. And you know, what I learned is one, that in this zone, you can build mega freaking buildings, humongous buildings.
But not residential,
But what?
but not residential.
Not multi.
No, you can build a humongous residential building.
Well, at 2,500 square feet of
Right,
lot
but
area
that's
per
the
unit.
point. But that's the one thing that I came out with.
Yeah.
is You can see, you
And
know,
building
if
dimension.
that given our 2,500 square foot requirement. Per lot area per dwelling unit, we can fit 79 units on this lot. That would result if we were to maximize this building envelope in units. That are 2,681 square feet each. That's all you can build. I mean, you can build them smaller if you wanted to, but if somebody wanted to maximize the lot, that's all you can build. So I think we've been looking at incentivizing, read this Stockbridge Road, you know, corridor the wrong way with bulk and height, although height could play a role, but with bulk and density, because the density is already
It's already
there.
there.
And so what we should maybe consider the incentives be is if, for example, you provide 10% less or 10% affordable housing, then your area per lot gets reduced to 1,500 or 1,000 per unit.
Well,
But
and
that would be a different discussion.
But why do we have? Given that we have lot coverage, we have height, we have setbacks, we have parking
Yeah,
requirements, we have all of that. Why do we need the 2,500 square feet?
we've had this discussion.
We could just take- we could just take, we could just take that out.
Give the developers the ability and the right to develop what they think is right on the lot and what they can afford and I mean, look at Habitat. They're part of what they presented today is something that they know is going to be successful. Every developer is going to do that.
when it
And I
seems like
think, and personally, I
more
think
so
that
than-
maybe this 2,500 per unit thing. Does not make many developments that developers pencil in our town successful, especially small ones.
Yeah, I don't know why it's in there, because we have all
We
these
talked
other,
about it
we-
before.
we
I
have all
think
these
it's super
safeguards.
wide
Because look, if you
not.
go to the next one, to the Goodwill site, you can only fit 12 units.
Yeah.
So look at the size of the unit.
and it also means on a 5,000 square foot lot, you can only build a 2-family.
So
Couldn't build a 3-family.
let me get back to the language here. Because, what this reads is an absolute by right for multi-unit family housing, not conditional on affordable housing.
Look at him, he wrote it.
So, are you guys, but this is our board. You know, so are we proposing that the, multi-unit dwellings of 9 or more be special permit unless there's an affordable housing component?
Well, because it
that's
says
the
C
idea.
8.3 affordable housing footnote X.
In any development containing 9 or more units, at least 10% shall be affordable.
Do you
That's
want
the
to share
footnote.
that?
So there's no option of not
No,
having
no,
affordable.
That's if you want to opt out
If
of
you want
the
to do by
special
right.
permit. If you opt out of the special
That's
permit,
not the way.
but that's what it should say. I don't know, I don't have it in front of me, so.
Can we do that?
The text that I sent to you would allow the by right development of 9 or more units But that development would have to include 10%.
So what
The by
would
right
there be a
development.
provision for a special permit then if they didn't have 10% approval?
No, that's already in
There
there.
would not be.
It's already,
There would not
So
be a
there's the-
provision. You would not be able to build without.
no, of course you would, without a special permit, sorry, I didn't mean, you're right, because but it's already in the bylaw.
You would not, if this change were to go through, let me just put it on the screen. So currently, dwelling multifamily, 9 units or more is by special permit only.
Right.
This would change it to yes. Meaning it's by right, 9 units or more, but
There's a footnote.
you have to include 10% affordable.
So all multi-unit
9 units or more.
housing, of 9 units or more in B2
By right.
would be would require 10% affordable housing.
Exactly, that's how this reads.
So the incentive is to
Incentive is
get rid of
by
this,
right.
get rid of the special permit.
Correct.
So it's just, this is inclusionary.
Still has site plan, Malcolm.
Okay,
It still has parking requirements, yeah, it still has parking requirements, there's
Parking.
still Route 7 landscaping requirements, there's still setbacks, all that stuff.
And the only other new thing that maybe we want to think about is removing the 2,500.
Yeah, lose the 2,500.
yeah,
Is that
So-
in the language there? No.
No, that's what the figure brought up here.
the Stockbridge Road corridor. Is there any other initiatives going on in the town right now with things like crosswalks, you're talking to town about traffic calming or?
That's,
Well, town staff has had discussions with DOT staff on what their future plans are. DOT has done survey of Stockbridge Road. We believe at some point, pending funding for design and ultimately construction, they'll consider some sort of complete street approach to Stockbridge Road.
What does that mean? Complete street?
Thanks. It would mean, at least sidewalks on both sides and or, shared use paths or bike lanes on both sides. Probably, just given the number of signals and turning movements, that center turning lane would probably stay, just knowing how that works. But things might get shrunken, in order to make room for sidewalks and or bike lanes on both sides.
And hopefully some kind of crosswalk.
And, oh yes, this would not be, undertaken, there's no reason to do anything there unless you're solving the sidewalk and crosswalk issue.
So
And you can't solve the crosswalk issue unless you build the sidewalks on both sides, because you can't have crosswalks to nowhere.
Right, there's no place to go.
So if I can just say one thing, that what Chris said is, one of the things that Chris said is really important, is that DOT will look at it. And if DOT looks at it right now, they're gonna see just a suburban strip. But if DOT looks at it in 10, 15, 20 years, and there's, I don't know, 600-700 people living in Stockbridge Road.
Yeah, and 20 people have gotten hit by cars.
well, I think if we build a sidewalk from Route 7 into Housatonic, then we can make them look silly, that they don't have a sidewalk. in.
Not diverter.
Right, but the thing is that there's a chicken and egg thing with development, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes it works that way. I mean, the DOT decided to redo Main Street for a reason, right? They saw that there was a need for a change there.
Well, the town,
Yeah, I think we asked.
if the town needed a road that would last another 3 generations.
So
If you get a-
if they take a look at Stockbridge Road right now, I mean, this is what they're gonna see, they're not gonna say.
And if
"Oh,
It's still, Stockbridge Road right now is dangerous.
If you get
I
a,
don't
It's got
disagree with you.
hotels, it's got restaurants.
I
it's
don't
got
disagree with that.
shopping.
So-
It's not my point. The point I'm trying to make is that something has to change first, and I don't believe that the road is what's gonna change first.
But if you allow
The
housing.
pattern has to change first.
I think we already have a pattern, that's the.
But
We
that's
do, it's a
the
separate
pattern that
circle.
supports what's
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
now.
but if
Yeah,
you,
but I mean, yeah, we have hotels on one side of the road and place to eat on the other side.
and So if you get some, like, they think everyone coming to a hotel has a car. So, but if you get houses, if you get housing on the west side of the road, it's gonna be very difficult for them not to put in a sidewalk. Once, if you get like a significant size housing, it's gonna be like, well, how are those people gonna get around? Because those people are definitely gonna walk. So,
Okay.
but, and so this kind of thing, I mean, I think this gets us closer to complete streets on Stockbridge Road.
So let's ask the question, though, the big question. Thank you, Chris, first of all, for trying to come up with a compromise solution. Big question is the big deviation is that this is the whole B2. So how does everyone feel about that? Or we don't normally make quick decisions. Not that we shouldn't make quick decisions.
But it's not
But-
really a zoning change, it's a process change.
That's true. So is everyone comfortable with that in the B2? That's kind of like a threshold thing. I just want to make sure. And I cannot for life me find that 2,500 square foot.
Multifamily section point.
Can I make a recommendation, Brandon?
I just wanted to get a sense if everybody's okay.
And you're gonna change
With
it
the
to
process change.
multi-units.
What, yes,
I think it's a great solution to jamming, as opposed to jamming something, big public meetings, et cetera, before the town meeting. And I think this addresses a lot of the critical issues that are kind of the substrate or the support for changes.
Pedro, what was your suggestion?
I just wanted to go ahead and just to expedite this meeting, to just make a motion to recommend that the B2 amendment to the select board for further discussion at a
Do you mind
public hearing.
holding
Talking about that.
on?
It's just, there's that second B2 unit on the other end of the street, and I'm just, have you looked at it to see what this might, I mean, like, I'm
Hold
looking
on,
at this.
If I can, Jack, it's
You
not
want to make
zoning
a
change.
motion?
No, I'm just looking, you were talking about B2, there's another second, I get zoning and whatever.
No, but
So-
But I'm just talking about the zoning map, the overlay, the B2's here for Stockbridge Road, and there's a B2 here, down here.
Yes.
And we're worried about all of a
And
sudden,
in the
this B2 area is going to be able
This-
to
no,
do.
the same thing
the
that's
same
there, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that the zoning is not changing. This is a process change.
Yeah, this.
Yeah.
I know, it's just, but it affects that area. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just, I was just, I have not stared at that other B2 area as a B2 area.
Yes.
I'm not used to looking at it that way. And I was just wondering, does anything jump out at you that would make it slightly different or more complex?
Well, first of all, I'll note that the town independently of DOT owns Route 7 south of the roundabout all the way to National Grid, which is essentially the B2 zone. And the town is in design now with a full complete street, sidewalks on both sides, bike lanes, all the way down to National Grid. So that change is happening because the town controls that road and will bring it forward to design later this calendar year.
So you've got something going down there that will be very interesting for the Stockbridge
Yes.
Road.
The second thing I'll note for South Main Street is that a great deal of that area is floodplain and or water quality aquifer protection. So it's because of the aquifer protection particularly, I think it's unlikely that even with a B2 change like it's on the screen now, that anything would happen
Without.
a special permit. But I think something would still trigger a special permit.
Well, that answers my question.
So Pedro was trying to make a motion.
But we already did just get housing down there too. In that section, right? So we
That was
have
the
that
S-God.
senior housing and then the S-God. Accessible housing. that needs to be-
So
Yes,
I don't know that you actually got the whole motion
Would you like to
out, so.
complete your sentence?
No,
Repeat it
I
again?
wanted to make a motion to recommend this B2 change to the select board.
I'll second that.
Jeremy's seconding it. Is there discussion?
Is it,
Yes.
No, I will vote for it to send it to the select board, and I think it's a good compromise.
It's coming back here for full public.
That's right, that's what I was gonna say, is
Well-
that it's coming back to us and we don't have to
So
adopt.
let's get it going.
But before-
so what are you including in that?
Yeah, that's
Is it anything beyond?
A, B, C, and D?
What,
No.
what he had on the
What
board.
you had on the board.
Yeah, on the board.
And you can discuss it all.
What, I don't,
Could you put
it's
that
not on the board anymore.
The
Just.
rest of us. No.
Are you sending something different to Jonathan?
That's it.
There it is.
So that's,
Adequate, no, okay, so it's everything that's in your, what about the, change in height?
Change in
No,
height
no.
is just the change in story, it's not.
That,
change in
that we
height.
haven't really actually discussed.
Oh, consider amending the table.
Which I think, whenever, if we ever get back to discussing these long works that I made is interesting because. The one thing I discovered too, particularly at Goodwill site, is that I think there's no way to meet the lot coverage there. So would it be maybe a good idea to allow an extra story so that they can meet the remaining lot coverage? So in other words, if their lot coverage is 1,500, but they can only cover 1,000, would we give them another 500? Yeah,
That's a different issue.
I know it's a
Like,
different
let's
issue, but
not
it's
confuse
something
it.
to keep in the back of your mind, because
Well,
I'll
if they
bring it up
build a
again.
childcare center, that'll be an incentive.
But that's, yeah, so let's just stay with what's ahead. Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
so what are we doing about the 40?
Yeah,
stories,
this
3 stories.
last two. Or the.
Can't consider to the select board.
The thing about the 4 stories is you can't really fit 4 stories
In
on
40 feet?
So it would have to be 4 stories, 50 feet. But again, this will send this, can change it at the public hearing and before we select, recommend it to town meeting, we can go through it.
What can we add, eliminating the 2,500 square foot? To this,
I think it's a different
That's a
zoning
different
thing.
section, yeah.
That's a different
So-
zoning. It's not just for this section, that would be changing the multifamily regs.
so I think we should do it.
But that would be a separate
So,
action.
so do we want the 4-story in there?
Just leave it in there.
Just
leave
for
it
now.
as
I mean, let's-
This is a procedural
Yeah,
action.
let's
right
get
now.
moving here.
It's
So what is the
840.
select board gonna do with the word,
Right, 20.
with that sentence that
Sorry?
says consider?
The select board is simply.
They're gonna send
refer
it
right back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're only doing, this is like
So they'll be
administrative.
Do we have the question
Okay.
mark on site plan review though?
We're gonna vote on it.
Or is
Well,
that a question mark or
I
just,
want to make sure that we're voting.
I'll delete the question.
okay,
The site plan review is already in bylaw.
yeah, that's why I was thinking the question mark should go.
You
Yeah.
are,
So,
we are voting to refer this suggestion change to the select board so that they can refer it back to us instead of public hearing. And we will have time to make
and
some
that
modifications.
sentence says to consider amending means that we could then consider it. Because the select board sent it back and that then falls within that scope.
Correct.
Okay.
General law says that zoning amendments may be initiated by the planning board, the select board, citizens, and others. All those amendments have to end up at the select board's desk. Whomever initiates them. And then all of those amendments, whoever initiates them, come back to the planning board for a public hearing.
Have to, right?
They have to.
But that sentence, consider amending the table of conditional requirements is not a change to the zone.
No, it can't be. You have to approve something at town meeting.
We
And
would-
you have to have a public
Yeah,
hearing.
but that's not a proposal to, I mean, that's not,
It would amend the
Would you like
dimensional.
to take that out for sake of discussion?
well, except unless having it there means that we can then.
You can change
Yeah,
any of this.
now it's a directive.
Let's just keep
instead of a
Okay,
dictum.
there we go, good.
Okay,
Take that as a word.
all right, so we have a motion and a
We
second,
considered it.
and we don't have any further discussion. Hearing none, Malcolm?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Pedro? Brandy? Aye. Okay, all right, so we're taking these one at a time.
Are
Chris,
are we gonna add
Thank
one to
you.
these?
hold on, what do you mean?
The 2,500.
2,500.
Possibly, let's
Yeah,
get
define
through
it first.
2, 3, and 4. 2, so 2, Chris, Chris made a suggestion. I think we all got an email communication on it with regard to the Silver Street parcel, south side of Silver Street. It's a couple of big parcels that are currently for sale. Across the street is the R1A, but they are R2. And the question is, given that they have infrastructure and they're on the roadway and it's a big level piece of property that,
Is everybody familiar with
Is
the
that-
lot, with the area that I sent in the email?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because I'd originally proposed this for the SCOD. And Berkshire Regional Planning said, no, we couldn't use it for the SCOD.
Correct.
Why is that?
Because of the way the smart growth regulations are written in chapter 40R of the general law, only certain types of land are eligible. And that would include commercial type land or areas that could be considered intensely developed for things other than multifamily zoning. Because this was an R2 zone, it just didn't meet the threshold under those regs.
Oh, but it would
So
now.
it couldn't be, no, it couldn't be an ESCO, but a straight zoning map change, that's up to us as a town,
But if we did do that, could it then be an SCOD?
possibly,
Because it is two parcels, right?
there's 3 parts.
Oh, those three parcels.
Because that cemetery is pretty densely developed. There are a lot of people.
Densely occupied.
It's not as densely. There's a lot of open space in there, but
anyway, so.
I have a question.
Well, I heard the
cemetery, Peter.
they might be looking
Hold
for
on.
more space.
Hold on.
I realize that it's on the other side of the tracks, but why can't we consider MXD here?
the MXD zone is sort of catty corner
Mhm.
is, can everybody, I don't know if you can see.
Yeah,
that cursor.
it's where the
It's the
Beechwood
Beech
Common.
Tree Common.
It's not across the street, right?
It's
Kitty corner, it's right there.
touchy.
It's just on the other side of the tracks.
So you think that would be spot zoning?
No, but I think it makes more sense as part of the R1A, which is immediately
Yeah.
across the street.
Yeah, but the R1 is the hill. That doesn't feel like the hill.
And all it does is reduce the lot size requirement.
Yeah.
And we've already got that huge house there is a multifamily house already, right?
Yeah,
MXD allows business and retail.
Yeah,
Right now, this is purely residential.
Yeah, I think we wanted to stay residential.
yeah.
So this is residential.
You know, I mean, there's a business right there on the other side. There's that, what's her name? Right on the other side of
The
the,
spa,
yeah. There's business
that
there.
was a home occupation until.
I
they
mean,
moved
come
out.
on.
yeah.
That
that was
is-
the whole
I think it's a little specious to say that there's no business there. There's no business on that side of the tracks, but on the other side of the tracks.
There are home occupations.
Yeah, I don't know. This is.
And this
commercial.
used to be home occupation, right?
No,
I think
This wasn't part of the farm.
R1A is an
Oh.
easy step to take. I think MXD is a more complicated. step.
So,
Just,
the R1A
I'm
doesn't,
interested.
to me, the
in-
R1A doesn't excite me. It doesn't really do anything.
Okay.
But
Would
it's a-
Well,
but
Would
it's
you
a-
rather
it's
it
an
be
easy
R2?
ask.
I don't really care if it's R2 or R1A. To be
All right.
honest with you, I mean,
Do we have a
I
motion for this to the select board?
Someone.
Second.
Second, we have a motion and a second. If any further discussion on how we all feel about it?
yeah, Chris, are you just dealing with the Haddad property or what about the,
I don't know, there's 3 parcels here.
yeah,
There's
It's little.
that one? So why
on
are
the
you?
south end, there's a parcel here that the driveway goes through, there's a larger parcel here with a
Yeah,
3-family historic home plus a pond.
but why did you exclude the one between the road and that property?
On the upper left.
Yeah,
That's,
There's 2 properties there.
That's the newsboy.
yeah,
Park, that's a park.
well, no.
there's a house there.
No, there's a house there and then there's
The
one more
house that
house.
the physical
out of
therapist had.
Oh, that's.
Right there.
it's in the zone?
Yeah.
that's R1A.
This is
This whole area.
currently R2.
Yeah, the only thing
Oh.
that's not is the newsboy.
This is currently R2, this home.
Yeah.
I did not include it in my map.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not. included.
I think you should, I mean, why not?
So can you explain why R1A?
Since it's been on the market, I've received a number of calls for people, from interested buyers who are looking to put an additional house or divide it into an additional lot, building lot. An R1A would allow a smaller building lot.
So there is interest in changing these lots.
Pardon me?
There is interest in changing the lots,
Correct.
because that would be the only reason to do it.
Yeah,
And so you wouldn't include that lot, and is the other lot really, really big? The one that we don't see?
I don't.
does it matter? I mean, if we look at R2 is 1 acre. And R1A is 10,000 square feet, which is like under a quarter of an acre.
Well, it's actually half acre with town water and sewer.
I mean,
Yes, that's true.
there's a house that I think you're talking about, which is
Yeah.
on Newsboy Lane.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's really no subdivision potential there. There's no reason to rezone it. The house is there, I mean,
It just creates an awkward.
So,
No.
Map.
no, it doesn't. They all front on Silver Street.
Chris, but
All of the ones on Silver Street, the 3 parcels here, there's a potential to split them into more building lots that doesn't exist on the Newsboy Lane stuff.
Doesn't John make a good point though, that since they're served by town water, they can all be cut in half, town water and sewer?
They can be, if they are R1A, they'd still be small.
Yeah, half acre
Does
versus.
It goes from 22,000 to
To 10.
10,000.
With less frontage.
True.
Water and sewer doesn't reduce the frontage. Only the other.
Right, but right now there are two, so right now they'll go to 22,000, whatever.
Correct, with 150 feet frontage.
And if they're R1A, they can go down to 5,000?
No, 10,000.
10,000.
10,000 R1A, 10,000?
Yeah.
10,000 with 100 feet of frontage. I'm
But
looking
that's my
at it right
point, is that you can already get 2 lots out of these already.
now. You could,
Out of- you know, if you have at least 1 acre, you can already get 2 lots out of them.
but you could.
If
get
you have the
4
frontage.
If you have,
You have front. Well, that goes for the R1A too. I mean, if you make it R1A, you still need the frontage,
Yeah, but it's only 100 feet,
as opposed to 150.
150.
And that's just width. You can get the width somewhere else. Right? We don't have frontage here.
this should be an easy one.
But it
Yeah.
isn't.
Well, let's send it on. If we want to debate it further, we're gonna.
Yeah,
debate it when
yeah,
it comes back.
I thought this would be
I
uncontroversial.
think you have a motion.
I have a motion and a second. We don't have
Aye.
any discussion. Malcolm votes aye. Jonathan,
Aye.
Jeremy, Pedro.
Aye.
Randy, aye.
They were all such
Alright.
excited eyes.
I
We should.
know.
send
I
that.
was waiting for abstain or no. Okay,
Thanks.
items 3 and 4 kind of go together and pertain to the Starford Road corridor. I still feel like that needs more work and we've got an alternative approach
I
in
think
the
that
works.
for the time
You
being.
think we?
Yeah, no, this is what I put.
Okay.
I'd say 3 and 4 at the table.
We'll table, and then do we want to discuss a possible 5th item for 8 point multifamily?
8.3.3.1.
Thank you.
8.3.3.1. 2 3s and a 1. It's on page 53.
I'm like looking at the online version, 8.3.1 multifamily dwelling. 8.3.3.1, right?
3.3.1.
Okay. 2 3s and a 1. In a multifamily development, more than one principal building may be permitted on a lot, provided that there shall be at least 2,500 square feet of lot area for each dwelling unit. SPGA by special permit may allow the lot area unit to be less than 2,500. So do we want to strike all of 1
I think we should strike all.
or
Yeah.
just the special permit
No, I
requirement?
think we should strike all.
Why are we? Why are we covering? Because we have dimensional.
Because we have coverage requirements.
Lot coverage,
Lot
setbacks, parking.
Parking.
So we could eliminate all of 1. I
think so.
propose that.
I accept. I'll second that
Do
emotion.
we have a motion to make a further recommendation? Chris, is something you can refer over to them? a modification to 8.3.3 to eliminate item 1 and renumber 2 and 3 as 1 and 2.
Sound good?
Okay,
Seems like a motion.
Okay.
Is that your motion? So, second.
excellent. Second by Jeremy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Malcolm.
Aye.
Jonathan.
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
It's gonna be like record time,
Okay.
What?
All right.
a zoning,
I think we'll table item
From-
C as well,
start to,
because we're now in the like
if you don't include all
the
discussion.
potatoes part of preparing for town meeting items. So if that concludes our zoning discussion, we'll go around to board and subcommittee updates. Pedro, do you have anything?
I don't have a subcommittee update or anything, but I want to know if anybody read this.
Zoning practice, no, I did not read that one.
Which one was?
Read
that?
it. Yes. And let's discuss it.
I don't want to.
Can we do it over drinks?
Jack.
We
are
can't,
you
we can,
You asked me that last week, and I said no.
we can only do that in pairs.
Jared, I've got pairs of gray.
Not pairs of pairs,
Sure.
just pairs.
Jeremy, any?
Well, we just met yesterday, the housing subcommittee. And should we keep it secret till we appear next week, Monday? No, it's nothing.
Yeah, you know, we're meeting, we're meeting with the select board on Monday, and it's mainly to discuss the housing subcommittee. We have a chart that I hope you guys would look at before the meeting that identifies all the initiatives that we would have discussed. And then Lee is prepared to present a couple things that require town meeting approval before they can go and get home rule charter. Or a home rule, home rule petition. And so she's gonna propose those. And then
Vivian.
I would like to talk though, after we get done with those things, about what the select board and planning board see as ongoing for the subcommittee.
Oh, sure, okay.
That's actually.
Yeah,
where I'd like to
has it worked its function and then maybe.
Yeah, I mean, here's where we are,
Yeah,
you know.
And what to continue with because of what we're bringing forward, and then also it relates to that first item, the list, and because on that list is, it says, who's really the driving force behind each of those initiatives. There's a lot of staff, there's some board stuff there, and, you know, and so the purpose of what the.
But most of the initiatives require more staff,
More staff,
so,
well, that's, yeah.
and we don't
and we don't have more.
have more stuff. Yeah, okay.
And then Vivian does have something that she's bringing to, that's gonna be part of that meeting, right?
No, it's not gonna be.
It's not?
No, well, we're gonna, I mean, Vivian made a presentation where she is, Vivian Orlowski, I'm sorry. Where she's proposing to increase the, to modify the senior tax deferral. To increase the income threshold, which is now very low, and decrease the interest rate, which is at 5%. We've only had one person take up the program since it was passed at town meeting. And there are other towns that have different formulas that get better results. So that's,
And
so we said that there's no point in representing that to the joint select board and planning board. She might as well just take that to the select board, because the select board can pass that without going to town meeting.
But I think what she was looking for at this meeting is just for the subcommittees,
To endorse.
like
No,
endorse it.
she wanted us to endorse it, not the subcommittee.
Oh.
She wanted the subcommittee,
To
not the
endorse,
joint committee.
yeah, the subcommittee to endorse it to the select board, because it's really, the select board has it just in their control, they can update both of those things.
Without-
Either or both every year,
Okay.
so.
Is there an agenda for this meeting that's been?
It was just posted today.
Good one.
So I did mention to the board members that the meeting on Monday starts at 5:30, Brandy might have some difficulty getting there. Zoom is possible, Randy, or if we'll get there right at 5:30, we'll try to work with Steve with the
Okay.
select board chair and kind
I'm not gonna
Delay
delay without my
the-
chair.
of start of the joint session.
Okay.
Is it
I
in
will
this
try my
room
best.
or some other room or is it?
Could be here.
We're not gonna say present until Randy gets here, when they
I
take
don't
roll.
do anything without my chair.
You're the vice chair.
Good thing you're sitting in the chair.
Well, if she gives me permission to do things, then I do.
Yeah, well. you can have it.
Oh, I
Okay,
see, you have to.
let's see, so that was your, Jonathan?
Yeah, there hasn't been anything new with, CPC.
Any committee issue?
What am I on? Oh, the design advisory committee. We haven't met in a year.
I know, that's how I feel about
Yeah,
it.
one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you sure that, are you the chair?
No.
So who would call the meeting?
They needed Pedro to herd cats.
I had actually had a DAC flashback when we were looking
Like
at
PTSD.
the Housatonic project.
All right, let's see, town planners report.
So, talked about most of it, but just to let you know, next meeting, maybe this is a DAC issue.
Yes.
How the hell do you know?
So, you're at your next meeting, the 23rd, Tuesday. You'll review a special permit application from St. James Place Inc., which is the Performing Arts Center here.
They're a huge mess.
Yeah, they do. They would like to construct an electronic marquee sign. Bylaw.
Sweet.
Oh, my God. I heard that before I even moved here.
It's a sign that
Yeah.
requires two special permits.
You have to do a site visit.
It's a sign that requires two special permits. One is a VCOD special permit. That's the select board. So
What's
they can direct-
VCOD?
Village Center Overlay District, thank you. So you'll be reviewing on that, and then you were the special permit granted for
Yes.
the marquee sign itself.
Oh, yes.
You'll see that on March 23rd.
They actually,
Will we see it physically? Will it be turned on? Will we see the
No.
light at night?
Uh,
That's my
well,
concern.
no,
You'll
no.
see the application.
they
You'll
actually,
see the application.
It could be very dangerous in its lead up to this round.
Excuse me.
Is that
excuse me, they actually have the sign. The sign was from the clerk. That the
Really?
clerk took down.
Can
I
we,
saw the picture
And-
and it sent to Clark, and I
Yeah.
thought, well, that's.
Yeah,
That's
and
misleading,
the sign is,
I thought it was so literal.
the sign is actually in one of their outbuildings.
can we
So
do a site visit?
that was my question.
and look at
I wanna
the,
go see the sign. Will they hook it up?
No,
Is it a big vertical like this?
yes,
I'll send you all the application.
Can we do a site visit?
anything else,
No.
Mr. Rumble?
Jeremy.
You have a joint meeting on Monday.
You have a joint meeting at 5:30
Does that
here in this room.
does that mean we should bring our joints?
Okay, now's your chance.
No, this is not
Yeah, all
allowed.
that down.
Well,
I will.
Seriously, again, going back to what Jeremy said, forget about the site visit, but can we see it? And is the best way to see it
a site
at
visit.
the Clark?
No, it's not.
No,
allowed.
it's
in their-
it's right
Oh, it's
down
gonna
there,
be-
It's in their outbuilding.
a half a block away.
Is it set up and plugged in
No.
and we
No.
can see it?
Is there a
There's
picture in the application?
Yes.
So when we get the application, we'll see a photograph.
We
I don't
can,
want a photograph. I want to see it at night in reality.
Or you can have to wait till we approve it,
Gavel.
and it gets built.
Use your imagination. Okay, do we have any citizens that still want to speak? If you do, please raise your hand. How about you, Mr. Clark? Yes, speaking?
I appreciate, you guys commenting on the town project.
Thank you very much.
I thought the electronic signs were, when the fire station wanted to do it.
yeah, we
years ago,
poo-pooed them. But
Yeah,
when-
they can do it
when-
now.
They can do it now.
Apparently,
Prohibited in Fairfax.
Chester, there was a new bylaw passed, year
Yeah.
or two ago.
Must have gone over my head.
but it was specifically, they were the driving force behind it.
Okay, so seeing no public comment, we'll adjourn the meeting at
That was the driving
8:44. Thank you, everyone.
Can you turn off the receiver?
Oh, I know
See, if that sign does this, oh,
Right.